Well, here we are. It's January the 11th of 2023, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. I am Nick, here with Quinn. How are things going, Quinn?
They're going excellent. Happy New Year.
Yeah, it is a new year. Well, I mean, it's a new year for those, I mean, who didn't join us for the annual recap last week, which if you haven't watched that, you should check it out. We had a good time, even if there weren't like individual chapter discussions like we normally do. But hey,
some say that's our best episode of the year. I can find one person, and if not, I'll just make a fake account that's me and say it.
There, now it's true. Some say.
Some say. Some. I'll make 2 accounts, plural. Done.
Oh, it's been already a packed year for me so far. We did, of course, the episode last week. Had an anniversary with Nicole. That was a big one. We went and did some stuff together. We had some happy times. We walked a lot. And then on Tuesday night, I remembered I had a manga to read. So I read it. And to give you guys some context for those of you who maybe missed all of the lead up to this or whatever, there was a bet that Quinn and I had going on, which I just failed. And so as a result of that, the audience had exclusive control over the next recommendation that we were going to do.
Yes.
And they chose to torture me. And you can't claim ignorance on this because everyone knew my thoughts on the series that we were going to talk about today. They were negative. I did not want to talk about it anymore.
We read the first 3 chapters on the recap.
We did. We read the first 3 chapters of Earthchild on the recap. I expressed quite clearly did not want to talk about it anymore. Did not want to read it anymore. And knowing that, y'all joyfully skipped to the ballot and voted for Earthchild for us to cover it. Well, guess what? I'm going to have my revenge on you fuckers today.
Oh God. What are you going to do?
Quinn, hit the music.
No.
We can't listen. No. Don't actually hit the music. We can't get copyright claimed, but I need everyone to use your imaginations right now. Pretend that my voice is several octaves higher and also way, way gravelier, and that there is a really sick guitar riff behind me, one of the greatest guitar riffs in history, and also like the visuals from Thor: Love and Thunder, the opening, are playing.
Oh.
And okay, so now we've got all that going. All right, here we go. There's a device that it seems to me can alter and erase memories, but it has no consequence and only shows up twice. The dad and kid float up to space, then turn around and head for his in-laws' place, 'cause sensible plot progression the writer can't devise. Whoa, Earthchild is grime. Whoa, Earthchild is grime. There's only 2 verses to that song, so I'm not going to do the second one.
It's excellent. I loved it. That was a beautiful little ballad you showed us to us.
This manga sucks. I will not apologize for expressing that. I hated this manga. I hated every single chapter that I read. I hated every character except the one that you're not supposed to, like, you know, empathize with, but I did, which is a bad sign. this manga, we'll get into why I didn't like it so much. Part of it was self-inflicted because I had to read 27 chapters in one night, but I did that. And here we are.
Yeah. And look, I did the same. I was like, well, I was like, look, I've read a portion of this previously. I'm just going to read it all in one go. And, you know, some would say that's the perfect way to digest it.
I mean, it limits the amount of time you're reading Earthchild, so yeah.
It condenses it. It condenses it, you know, which is maybe the way it should be consumed. Like getting getting a leg amputated. Like just do it at once, you know?
I don't know about that, honestly. Because when you read it all at once, you realize that it doesn't make sense the directions it goes in from sometimes chapter to chapter. So for those of you who didn't bother to read the manga, and I know that a bunch of you, you know, in reality, the reason you wanted us to cover this was because you did actually keep on reading Earthchild because you were like, this manga's insane, and I want to see where the hell this shit goes. And so you did actually read it while it was coming out. And so even for those of you who did that, you might not be aware of the weird directions and backtracking that happens in this short but extraordinarily packed series. There's like 3 or 4 different climaxes that could be series finales that happen in 27 chapters of this. First of all, the first chapter is a finale.
The first chapter absolutely has this was a one shot at one point energy, and there was never meant to necessarily be something more. And then, you know, we talked about it at the time.
We did.
That it felt like it was like, oh shit, I actually need to write more than one chapter for this.
Then there is the conclusion of the main plot line that happens when there's still like 6 or 7 chapters left. And I swear, when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, they're at the ending. What are the last 6 chapters going to be? Well, it turns out that there is another story arc that happens there after a time skip, because there were clearly more plans for the series to last longer, and they get crammed into like 4 or 5 chapters. And then there is a 1 chapter after the end conclusion where you get to see how everyone's doing and how happy they are and stuff. It's mind-boggling how much happens in this very short Shonen Jump series. The series, by the way, ran from February through September of last year. It was done by Hideo Shinkai. It is a sci-fi series about a psychic powers endowed woman named Kareri, and how she well, it's not about her, sorry.
I mean,
it's about how a guy.
Hey, Nick, I think we're leaving out a key detail about this character the audience needs to know up front. He's very average. You gotta know this.
So average.
This is maybe, and I say this in jest, but this is legitimately his major character trait. He is a normal dude. And what that means, this series will expand on as it gets to it.
So this normal dude named Reisuke, he meets this superpowered psychic woman named Kareri, who is an Earthchild. This person who is somehow endowed with these incredible abilities and is kind of tasked as a result of this with protecting humanity from various different cataclysms which could endanger them. Also, she fights crime.
I was going to say,
that does not actually come up ever.
I mean, she does stop a lot of bank robberies for some reason. That's like like you are responsible for saving the world. Also, sometimes you have to save banks from being robbed.
So, at first, Kareri doesn't really want to like get close to Reisuke, but they fall in love. They get closer and closer and closer. They get married. They have a son. And then, just as they're getting set to, have their freaking life as a family together. Oh my gosh, a giant, massive meteorite is going to hit the Earth, and Kareri's got to go and stop it. There's this kind of sense that Kareri's going on a suicide mission. There's no way she can make it back from this. And even though she and Reisuke try and like keep the faith and believe in each other that she will come back, that doesn't end up happening. She ends up having to sacrifice herself in order to save not just the world, but also her husband and her son. And then, just when it seems like all hope is lost, in the moment where Kareri is gone, there are now powers that fall to their son, like in the exact same moment. Now, their little kid, I think his name is Mamoru, has powers. So then, like, that's the first chapter. But then there's a whole bunch of stuff involving like a government agency. There is an extraordinarily brief conflict over whether or not Mamoru is going to be separated from Reisuke and raised to be the next big superhero to protect the world, or if he can stay with his dad. That gets resolved very quickly because, as it turns out, everyone that Reisuke comes across is a big softy pushover. No obstacles really actually rear their heads in a way that is dramatically interesting, that could possibly tear this family apart. And also, go ahead.
I think in about the span of 4 chapters, 3 different chapters have the same premise. It might be like 5 chapters, and it's 3 of them. But all of them start with the premise of Reisuke encounters some element of this organization called Waste that seem as though they are antagonistic towards him. And then by the end of the chapter, they're like, no, dog, 100% behind you in this crazy fucking plan. Let's fucking go, dog.
And I want to be clear, like, only like the first or first 2 times does it seem like they're nefarious and, it's like, the evil government, or, the big picture focused government that doesn't care about this small family and they're going to tear them apart. It's like, well, no, there's actual like reasonable concerns that they have, such as, well, Reisuke is a baby that has superpowers, and Reisuke is a dude who's a single father who's going to try and raise this kid, and they're concerned about him, growing up to be a guardian of the world. And he's like, I'm going to raise him the normal way. He's going to have a normal childhood and a normal life and stuff. We're not going to sacrifice any of that. He'll grow up to be a responsible hero and stuff, but also he'll have a normal childhood so he doesn't, grow up traumatized or whatever. Because Kareri had to kind of sacrifice her childhood, and so he knows about that. So Reisuke's like, I'm gonna raise this kid by myself, and they're like, well, you can't do that because he's a psychic baby with no impulse control who could tear you apart immediately without understanding what he's doing. So there's a brief period where they're trying to figure out, like, well, how do we, get Mamoru to stop blasting people with his mind energy and stuff? And Reisuke is like, well, what if we like take him somewhere and just like let him play outside? And they're like, okay. And Reisuke is still stupid about it because he's like, no, if I put on the bulletproof vest that'll protect me from being torn apart, then Mamoru won't be able to hug me or some shit like that. And they're like, you idiot, you can't do this by yourself. We're trying to help you. Put on the fucking protective equipment and then play with your son.
So here's the thing. I'm generally going to be with you on this. I do have to come to Earthchild's defense in that I think these opening chapters are probably the best parts of the series, solely because it presents some kind of challenge to Reisuke, which is like, hey, look, we're going to give you a lot of outs when it comes to this scenario that you're in. And, it does show to the content of his character that each time he tries not to take the easy way out. They offer him an opportunity to like, hey, we'll take the kid for you. And he's like, no, I want to be a part of his life. Don't do that. Although thinking back on that scene makes less sense because you find out eventually that like the director is like a super cool dude, but like if the baby hadn't like gone nuts, they were gonna just erase his fucking memories. They did erase his fucking memories, and they just came back. Anyway, they also present the like, hey, we can age him up 10 years and just give him artificial memories. And he's like, no, I don't want that. The scene where he wants to play is meant to show that Reisuke, in his intentions, can also be wrong, but it's something that's never really relevant. Reisuke is always correct in his feelings towards family for the rest of the series going forward. So I'll say this is like one of the less good parts, but I do appreciate that the series does go to show that he is trying to do the right thing when it comes to this kid.
I will actually agree with the heart of what you said, which is that this is the best part of the series. It's all downhill from here.
It is. It absolutely is.
It's like, yeah, there's actual challenges of the situation, and it's not just like, oh, the big things that are happening. It's the little realities of what does it mean for this normal guy to be trying to follow through on this promise that he made to raise his godly empowered son in a normal way without, resorting to sending him to a bunch of specialists that will be able to look after him safely, if not properly, not seeking out help from people and stuff. Also, the weird thing is that, like, this dude's trying to, like, hold down a job as a single father too, very, very briefly. And it's just like, oh my, dude, you gotta make some compromises here.
I think the series is a lot better when you just assume that the government agency pays for everything. Oh, can you hear me now?
Uh-oh. This might be a problem. Snap my mic out.
Uh-oh. Well, we'll examine that. But I was saying that this series makes a lot more sense when you simply think that he doesn't have
there we go.
a job, and this government agency has to pay for everything for him, basically.
Yeah. He's like tries to send Mamoru to daycare briefly, and it's like, God, just at least make use of the government facilities to look after the kid when you're not looking after the kid, please.
Yeah.
But no, he's insistent on it. And also, like you said, the through line of the series is that Reisuke is like always right. And that includes when he's being extraordinarily dumb about not just the realities of a dramatic and potentially cataclysmic situation, but also in terms of like science, where like they'll get into a situation where they've gone up into space, which, by the way, the way they get up into space,
very easy. It's like three fucking pages into a chapter, and they're like, "Oh, we made it into space."
When you think about how Dr. Stone put essentially the goal of the series almost from the beginning was going to space, and they said about it for hundreds of chapters, even in series where it's more of a sci-fi thing, where it's something that's like assumed to be common. Freaking Samurai 8 had a more dramatic setup for the characters are going to space now. The way they go to space, and the reason that they do this is because, as it turns out, Kareri is not dead. She did not actually sacrifice herself. Well, she did, but she did not lose her life in sacrificing herself. Somehow, her powers caused her to petrify her own body into this pseudo-meteorite thing that is orbiting the Earth now. And so the government agency has found this, and they're like, so it's technically possible we could potentially save her, especially because there's like psychic connection going on between Kareri and her catatonic state and Mamoru, and this lets her talk to Reisuke, which takes a lot of the dramatic tension out of the story.
It really does. That does feel like it's a mistake to let them just talk to each other for like 6 straight chapters.
Like, they're just exchanging like normal conversations. There's like comic relief that happens between them. They have a little bickering argument at one point. It's never treated as special that they can talk. And look, Kareri is a better character than Reisuke because, my left sock is a better character than Reisuke. But so I guess her presence is somewhat welcome, but it really does feel like it takes away from the situation of we got to get Kareri back when she's there. It's just that, you're not reunited physically yet. So they have to go into space to get her. But there's this kind of like guerrilla element to what they're doing, because the division of the government that is allied and is united with Reisuke in his beliefs is only like a portion of the organization. So they don't like get a spaceship to send him up into orbit with Mamoru or something like that. No. So there's this other retired Earthchild named
Albert,
who has a character, at least. I'll give him that.
He does technically, he does actually have a character and personality. Is it a good one? No. But he does have one.
It could have been. He's just too on the nose with it. His whole thing is that I'm the main character, and so I'm the most important person, and everything will work out great because I'm the main character. Except that he's literally going around saying, I'm the main character, and everything is going to work out great for me because I'm the main character.
He will literally be in this manga telling everyone he's the main character, in a manga he's the side character, and you're like, huh. Do we need to go back and finish how they get to space?
So the way that they do this is they need to go to space using psychic powers because they can't have a ship because. So Albert says, look, my psychic powers have faded since my big heroic last stand as an Earthchild, so I can't lift all of us up, but I can lift Reisuke up, and then I'll have Mamoru in a kitty carrier around my chest, and then Mamoru will want to go after Daddy, and so he'll lift both of us up. And so that way we'll just psychically push ourselves up through the stratosphere to the space station in orbit.
Yep.
And, there is...
It works multiple times.
It works. And there is no fanfare over this at all. It's just kind of a big silly joke because they arrive outside the space station and there's this very miffed female astronaut who is a major supporting character in the series who's just angry at them that they don't seem to take into account the gravity of any situation that they're in. And she's just kind of bitter about it.
Okay.
And you know what? I was on her side through this entire series.
All right. Well, all right, so we have to go back a little bit because we're missing one of maybe my favorite. I don't understand why this is happening moment in the series. So the character Albert was previously an Earthchild, and what we eventually come to find out is that all Earthchilds essentially die. At some point, there's a big mission, and they hear something that basically tells them how to activate their powers to a fuller extent, and then they will save the day. But they will die during that mission. And Albert had a brother who was like, hey, I know this is the fate that falls Earth children. That's why there's basically when one dies, a new one replaces them. There's only ever really supposed to be one. So it's weird that we have like a former or retired one. But his brother's like, hey, I'm going to save you. I feel like I can figure it out. So they call it the Day of Destiny shows up for Albert. This is his cataclysmic event that he will supposedly die at. A black hole spontaneously appears on Earth, and he's like, "Gotta use my psychic powers to fix this." And the way he is told, something we'll get into later, tells him how to use his powers and condense into a ball. And then his brother apparently secretly followed along with this mission. In this moment, runs up and grabs the ball of psychic energy from him, and
which he could just do.
You could just do. Grabs it like it's a fucking football and just leaps into the black hole. So he dies but saves the day. And it's meant to be this tragic thing. But then Albert is talking to him and he pulls up his shirt and he's got a giant grafted skin part over where his heart would be. And he's like, my brother's heart jumped to me. And you're like, oh, okay. This isn't literal. But I think it is. And he's like, yes, my heart was destroyed from being near the black hole. And if you look at the art, it doesn't explain that at all. His body seems fine, but I'm like, hey, it's a black hole. Who knows what it is? Maybe the vacuum of it inside of his body just destroyed an organ. That makes sense. His brother fucking jumped into the black hole. How was his heart recoverable? What?
Yeah,
what is...
No wonder he died. His heart got ripped out of his chest on the way to the hole.
So that's why I'm like, was he literal? Did his brother's heart literally magically jump into his body?
Yes, Quinn.
What does that mean?
Because that's why Albert's powers aren't so good. It's because he's got a bad heart transplant, which suppresses his powers. So, look,
it's mind-boggling to think what the implications of that in the scale of this series.
This manga seems to have the issue of it never gets out of the pitch meeting or the that thing that a lot of executives do where they'll get a bunch of people from a focus group in a room and then just have them throw out, what kind of shows would you like to see? And they just start throwing ideas around and stuff. And they're like, okay, well, yeah. And then they're like, okay, we'll take this and put it into a real story later. So, no, imagine that never happens. And just like every chapter, there's just a big random thing that happens that hasn't been hammered out, hasn't been refined, doesn't connect to anything around it, and is just a big thing that happens. So, and there's another superhero who comes in and he collapsed a black hole with his powers, and his brother, he sacrificed himself to save him, but his heart, his brother's heart is now part of him because of the black hole. Yeah, so like that. And so they're gonna go to space because they've got psychic powers, and so his psychic powers are weak, but the babies are strong, so he'll hold the baby while they're in. Well, they can't just float into space. They're wearing spacesuits, and then they go to space with their psychic powers. Oh, but once they're there, Mamoru, like, how do they make sure that he knows how to recognize his mom? Oh, okay, so they go back down to see Kareri's parents. This pissed me off so much. They go to space. They get to the space station, and they're like, we'll use this as our base of operations. So when Kareri flies by, at the right moment, we'll have Mamoru use his psychic powers to slow her trajectory so then we can grab her. Because we can't put fucking equipment up here or anything. Like, it's all going to be psychic powers that we use for this while we're in space. And so they're like, okay, but there's a problem with that. Is Mamoru going to recognize his mom while she's, a rock? And so they're like, I guess that's not going to work. We need to teach Mamoru how to love his mother as a rock. We need to go and see her parents. Let's go back down to Earth after we just got to the space station, and let's go visit them.
Yeah. There's a lot of frustrating sort of back and forth there. Also because visiting her parents feels like a real mood whiplash sort of thing. But this is also at the point in time where Reisuke and Kareri can just talk to each other on the fucking regular.
Yes.
So that's kind of where they start having their most innocuous fucking dumb conversations. The entire time this is happening, Kareri is stuck in a rock, but it is personified as though she is trapped in this endless darkness where she really can't see anything. However, in this chapter, she's lounging about on the floor. She's one where she's face down and relaxed. And she's I don't like it when people praise me. It always feels disingenuous. And you're I'm glad you're kicking back in fucking Death Void up there. I appreciate that for you.
She makes a big deal when Mamoru and Reisuke are going to visit her parents. Don't let them go into my old room. She's got this horrible thing that she doesn't want them to see. And the implication is that, they had their memories erased because,
they couldn't deal with the grief. So they were I would prefer to not know or something.
So they specifically had any Earthchild related memories that they had erased. So they don't know anything about how Kareri had powers or that she sacrificed herself to save the world. They think that she died in a plane accident instead. So it's okay, don't bring any of that up. Then it turns out that they still remember how they kind of raised Kareri to believe in truth and justice and all that kind of stuff. And then it turns out that the thing that Kareri didn't want them to see was just how she kept mementos of things that they gave her to let her know that she was good and doing a good job because she was embarrassed by them. And that was her big secret.
It's in like a locked chest.
Yeah.
She's like, no one must ever know that my parents loved me.
Yeah. Especially my parents.
Especially my parents.
So that happens, and they make the breakthrough with Mamoru.
Can you imagine the feelings that would go through your head if you found like a locked chest in like an important family member's like closet, and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like it's hidden, like the person's never talked about before, and you finally
wrapped in chains.
Yeah, and you finally fucking crack it open, and it's just full of like text message printouts you sent them of like, oh, cool job. Like you'd be like, do you need are you insane? Do you need a hug? What's going on? Why are you locking this up?
It's like I can understand like if this isn't in my house, but I'm the most likely person to find this. I already know about all these things. I gave them to you.
Like, you would almost hope you're like, there better be a gun at the bottom of this chest. And there's like a bunch of like it's like a smoking gun and it's all elaborate, like build up like, oh, it's just full of garbage. Wait a minute, a gun. Aha.
So that all happens. Mamoru makes the breakthrough of like, oh, this is how much my family loves my mom. I can love her as a rock too, which is an incredibly complex thing for, an 8-month-old to pull off, but good for him.
Yeah.
Then they're like, the parents are not dumb, so they say to Reisuke, there's something that you know that we don't know, right? Tell us. And so Reisuke's like, okay. And so they go and get the device that erased their memories and give them their memories back.
Apparently you can just do that.
So all the dramatic tension over you can't tell them about this because their memories have been erased. They just give them back. So there was no point in them not knowing about Kareri's powers at all because they got all the stuff that they needed from them while they're in the one sequence where they didn't have the memories, and then they just have them again, and everything's just fine. So why even bring up the erased memories? I don't know. So that happens, and they're like, okay, now Mamoru can push the rock when it's coming towards us when it gets close. So they start doing that. Things are going great, but oh no, the meteor storm that we projected as coming in a few days, it's coming early. And oh my god, it's like the tiny little tiny meteorites are shooting through the beyond stratosphere and where them it pierces through Reisuke's hand, and so they're like, oh, it's too dangerous out there, we can't go forward with the plan. So Reisuke is like, no, we have to save Kareri, even if I have to throw myself out there and catch her as she flies by. And freaking Albert is like, I like the cut of this guy's jib. I'm gonna use my horribly limited psychic powers that would not let me fly us around before to fly us around because we're lighter in space, I guess. So let's go and catch that rock. Oh man, stuff happens and Albert gets knocked out and they can't quite reach. It's
actually kind of funny because like they do this big buildup of like, I'm going to go out there. No, you can't do this. You're going to abandon your son. Like you're going to die out there. And Albert's like, no, fuck that. There will not be 2 dead Earth children on my hands. I'm bringing this one. I'm going to save him. And then they float out like 3 feet, and then he's like, oh, rock. And he's just, there's so much drama after that. And he's just, all the points of it just fucking floating there like,
So Albert gets knocked out, and Reisuke manages to reach, and oh my gosh, Kareri, she moves even though she's petrified, and they hold hands. But it's not enough to fully awaken her. They need her to wake up so that she can use her powers to save them. So Reisuke is like, no sacrifice. No, all of us are going to make it through this. He just takes his helmet off and starts making out with her while she's petrified, and it wakes her up because everything that this guy tries, throwing himself out into space with no weight means of tying himself down, just throwing himself at his psychic kid when he's not wearing a bulletproof vest, making out with the girl while he's in the depths of space. It always works out for him because this is a shonen series, and with determination and a kind heart and a sense of justice, you can do anything. This manga made me hate
shonen manga. Jesus. Nick, I have some bad news for you. We're going to be talking about a lot.
We're going to talk about a lot of shonen manga later.
Yeah, like there's the challenge that this series has where Reisuke will not be deterred, and his solution to every problem is like, well, family is important. And like, it doesn't matter what the scenario is. It's not like he's like, he could be something as like simple as like, I need to convince this organization that they need to work with me, or it could be as complex as like, yeah, my wife is a rock in space, and I don't know how to save her. All of it has this exact same answer. If you believe in your family, it'll work out. And it does every time. They never use that to be like, well, never giving up hope allows them to like think of an ingenious solution or anything like that. But just essentially magic can happen when you believe in your family. And you're like, all right, dog, fucking Vin Diesel, let's do it, man. Fucking make out with your statue wife. And hope, you know what? I bet she's going to turn into a real girl, because if she doesn't, then you're just dead. So
yeah, it better work out for you, I guess. Yeah, that's, the magic of over-the-top stories, particularly when it comes to shonen manga, is presenting a seemingly impossible scenario, and then the good guy, through guts and determination, manages to turn it around and win the day. The key to that, however, is you, as the reader, have to believe in them, whether it is in their personality, whether it is in their cool powers, their cleverness, whatever. There's got to be something that makes you look at that person and say, I believe that they can actually do this. And when they do it, you get excited and pumped. When Reisuke, a normal fucking dude who won't stop fucking throwing himself out of airlocks while crying about his kid and his wife, saying, I'm not going to give up anything, because he's an entitled douchebag, keeps on having everything work out for him. I just keep on one of those meteorites to put a hole in his skull so that he won't show up anymore, and so that something more interesting will happen. It ruins the sense of mystique. It ruins the sense of fun. It ruins the sense of, just suspending disbelief and thinking that, yeah, in this hopeless scenario, there is, in fact, hope to be found. It's just like, no, this seems like there's just a guy in the real world who things just magically work out for, and I don't like that guy. I wish something wouldn't go well for him.
Yeah, it is deeply frustrating. Neither of the two the leads, are particularly interesting characters, so their romance doesn't really come across that memorable. But Erie Gray asks like how she could save him for the vacuum of space. I know Erie Gray knows the answer, but it is worth elaborating, because he takes his helmet off in space, like he's done for, right? Even if she comes back to life, like, well, no, because after Kariri comes to life, she uses her psychic powers to pull a big glob of the atmosphere back to her, and then shoves it down Reisuke's mouth, thus giving him enough oxygen to then trap him in a bubble so that they can safely bring everyone back down to Earth. It is, chef's kiss, wonderful. Fuck science. Who gives a shit?
I mean, in a better manga, it'd be really cool.
A lot of things the series does in a better manga would be pretty cool, actually.
That's not why I'm putting my head in my hands. Now I'm remembering that then Reisuke has a near-death experience where he meets the villain of the manga. Because this manga has a villain. This manga has an antagonist. Like, the entire time up to this point, it was just kind of like forces of nature and also occasional bank robbers that were like the actual force to be overcome. But no, there's an antagonist. And it's the Earth itself. takes the avatar of like this bratty teenage girl who's sucking on a lollipop that looks like the planet all the time.
It's too sexual too. There's a lot of like close-ups on her sucking on the Earth lollipop. You're like, I don't like that you're doing this now. I don't like this character being designed this way now.
So Reisuke is near death. The avatar of the Earth wants him to die because his presence is now kind of fucking things up because it has generated there being 2 active full Earth children in the world. And he makes them more powerful. And she says some old bullshit about how this is bad because reasons.
Okay, hold on. I need to go over this because all right, up until this point, I wasn't actually that upset with this series. It's like some stuff's dumb, whatever. It is the moment Tara, as she comes to identify herself as, although they don't. They never call herself that. They just keep calling her the Earth.
Yeah,
afterwards.
she's essentially like Gaia, the spirit of the Earth, but she calls herself Tara, as in terra firma, or Tara who betrayed the Teen Titans, if you will. Exactly. So Tara. Yes.
So she is explaining to Reisuke why he cannot exist, and she keeps positing throughout her entire run of this series the dumbest fucking conjecture hypotheticals out there. Her logic is like, there can't be 2 active Earth children because what if there is a conflict between 2 different groups and Kakari fucking finds herself siding with one group? Well, the other group is undoubtedly going to flock to Mamoru, and then you have a conflict that is headed by these 2 Earth children. And because you physically, not like spiritually or anything like that, physically, your body empowers these children like a fucking aura buff in World of Warcraft, your body will be fought over, split in half, shredded to pieces, and the side that ends up with more pieces of your body will win this awful conflict that will result in so much devastation for the planet. And he's like, oh my God, in despair. And you're like, what hypothetical are you referring to? Who are these groups? What is actively happening in this thing you're suggesting?
I'll tell you what hypothetical that is, Quinn. A more interesting manga. I read through that and I was like, that makes no goddamn sense in the context of this series. There is no logic behind why any of that would happen in the universe that you have set up. But fuck it, I want to read that instead. A series where they're hunting down some dude's body parts because they make their magic person more powerful.
Ooh,
fuck
Nick,
yeah, let's do it.
Well, Nick, don't worry. We're going to get to part 7 of JoJo sometime very soon.
Hell yeah. That happens. Now the Earth is the villain. There's a time skip. Mamoru is now 6. He looks like he's 12, but he's 6.
I thought he was 8.
Now.
Okay, maybe, yeah, you're right. In my mind, I was like, wasn't he 8? And I just forget. I don't care.
He and his parents are now a superhero team because Dad, despite not having powers of his own, gets to go with us because he, again, quote unquote, makes us more powerful.
They decide, they're like, dude, he's so... just by touching either his wife or his child, like physically, it empowers them both so greatly. So he has to now come along with these missions. And that allows us to make sure that fucking Mamoru, who I think was like 4 when they started sending him on a mission. So like, yeah, but his dad's there. So like, fucking stop those bank robbers, Junior.
So they come up against literally the Earth itself. It's like, I'm sick of all this. I'm going to separate you. There's a whole thing that involves illusions and stuff and trying to break Mamoru's will. And eventually, Mamoru and Kareri, using Reisuke's buff, split all 3 of themselves into molecules and spread themselves around the world.
They use their psychic powers to molecularly separate themselves so that they can all have a family meeting inside of Death's door. And that is fucking awesome. I know this series is dumb. That shit ruled so hard.
And they basically make Tara sit down and give her a stern talking to
Then
to
they
stop
don't!
all this.
They don't!
Then they're like,
They let her
we
immediately
should be
control
a
the
family.
conversation.
We should be a family, and we'll take care of you, and promise and stuff.
She does another one of her hypotheticals. Because they're all sitting at the table. She's like, what are you going to do? She's like, you sat me next to your child. And she pulls out a knife and goes to stab more. Or Carrie's like, no. And blocks her with her psychic. She's like, you fool. Don't you know by doing that? And the knife goes flying, shunk right into her dad's chest. And she's like, that'll happen. And you're like, what are these hypotheticals? That if she blocks the tech, it'll undoubtedly kill her father.
If you save one person, someone else has to die. That's how I decide the world works. And it's like, well, but no, because this is a difference in psychology. Because the entire thing of Reisuke's family is no consolations. Everyone lives. Everyone survives. It's like, that's not how the world works and stuff. It's like, yeah, but you're literally arguing with the spirit of, a planet. So,
oh my God.
So she decides eventually, I guess you'll be of use to me. I'll stop trying to tear you apart and stuff. As long as I say so. But maybe I'll be back one day, Gadget.
Yeah, she goes through this whole thing. By the way, she also has a small speech where she reviews, because our entire philosophy is like Earth children are, because my body, all of you are part of my ecosystem. This is basically like my living body. And Earth children are like my white blood cells that defend me against invaders. And eventually when a cell's outlived its usefulness, it needs to be purged, like any dead cell should. And you're like, all right, I can kind of operate under that logic. And she goes on to explain, she's like, I hate humans. Back in the day, I used to use dinosaurs, and they were way more good. And we just get like a single shot of like a psychic dinosaur dying to stop the asteroid. And you're like, why didn't we read this manga? This is so much cooler.
I don't know, Quinn. I think psychic dinosaurs is a really, really dull premise. They'll never work.
Never. We gotta have more of our characters despair for 16 chapters. But she goes to explain. She's like, all right, you've convinced me. I don't even remember what they do to convince her. They just believe really hard because that's how they solve every problem. And she's like, fine. I guess what I can do instead is, how about you guys work for me and you make sure these things happen and the world continue. You protect my body, protect the Earth, and then we will continue this and we'll evaluate later. And like they just leave, and no one just says like, isn't that kind of already what we were doing? Isn't that what the Earth children really were doing to this point?
Do you not remember like the freaking giant asteroid that Carreri? Never mind. Fine.
Yeah, and like it's very obnoxious because you're like, I want to be angry at this, but at the same time, like we're almost at the end. Like let's just keep powering through this.
Yep. And
why does the Earthchild seemingly do things like, you're like, oh, it's protecting the whole Earth? Like, why doesn't you have the Earthchild like go around doing things that like helps protect the actual Earth itself? That's where you're really like, why are you stopping crimes? Why are you saving people from trucks? Like, shouldn't your job be out there to be like, I actively need to protect this ecosystem system and stuff like that? Like, what is your purpose at this point?
Oh hell. Why doesn't, frickin' the Earth bring up the point of, like, humans are destroying the Earth with pollution and everything?
For a series that is entirely about how the Earth is using these things as, like, a literal, like, immune system, there is zero environmental message in this manga. It is not once brought up that, like, humans are causing problems to the environment or anything like that. The Earth's just like, hey, could you stop these hurricanes that I also have absolute power to control, as evidenced by the fact that I sent like 6 of you. There's 6 of them at you last chapter.
And then the series just kind of ends. There's just like a time skip. The big time skip is to confirm that, oh man, Mamoru, he graduated. Elementary school.
Yeah, I was gonna say like what, middle school I think he was, or elementary school.
Well, they say you're a junior high school student now, okay. So he's like now 11, 12. He looks like he's 16, but he's like 12, I guess. And everyone's kind of in the support cast is kind of acting like this is their big, like, oh, I no longer have to, like, be his mentor. I could just, like, retire or something. And it's like, he's 12, so I don't know how that changes anything. Whatever. And Kareri and Reisuke are, like, this kind of still super lovey-dovey, like, not even middle-aged couple. They're in their, like, 30s now, I guess. And Mamoru's kind of grossed out by them, and that's just it. It's just like they're happy. The end. Mamoru's growing up a little bit because he doesn't want to spend all this time with his parents now. He wants to, like, spend time with his friends. Oh, he's growing up a little bit.
There's, like, a weird note too that, like, they're like, yeah, all these things are gonna keep working. And Mamoru's like, and the Earth's always watching us, and at any point in time may decide to fuck us and try to kill us again. So I guess we'll have to deal with that if the time comes. Like, they try to paint the idea that, like, Terra is part of this family, like, almost like a sister, And then they're just like, now it's kind of hovering over us, like, it's probably going to kill us at any point in time if it's not happy with the job we're doing, which, again, considering we're doing the exact same job we were doing beforehand, I don't really know how promising this thing will work, but I don't know.
There's no indication that they're doing anything differently, focusing on different things. Nope, they're just doing, like, stuff. Yeah. They're still being the superhero family thing. So,
but Albert grew out his beard, and that's an important thing.
Yeah. In order to show that time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Hate this manga. I hate it in my core, and that hatred is always going to be with me now. And thanks, guys, for having me read this.
So I actually kind of like this manga. Look, I don't hate this manga as much as you do, or most of the other people do. There are absolutely...
I'd be shocked if you hate it as much as me.
There are absolutely, like, big problems with this manga that are extremely obnoxious. My biggest issue with it is it really is, like, obnoxiously obsessed with people being, like, in despair or anguish. Like, so many chapters are, like, a character saying something to Reisuke, like, hey, we don't think this will work, or something like that. And then just be like, for, like, 16 pages. And then at the end of it, it's like, oh, wait, no, I believed it. I solved the problem. And you're like, this is so frustrating not to physically read. Like, it is constantly doing that. And then eventually, we don't have to watch Reisuke do it anymore. We get to watch his stupid kid do it instead. And it's like 3 chapters where there's 2 chapters back to back where Terra just says something to fucking Mamoru, and Mamoru has to go through a whole bunch of, like, until he's like, oh wait, I have family, and then he's no longer intimidated by her anymore. And you're like, this is so obnoxious. And that entire part is such a wild whiplash. Like, even for how silly the series was at the start, the Earth comes after these 3 and starts sending hurricanes shaped like his parents at Mamoru, who's just like, we're here to kill you, we hate you, son. And you're just like, what am I reading at this point? Like, it was truly a moment where you're like, where have we gone? But at the same time, I do pull back a little bit, and I say, like, look, the series is being canceled. I can't really shit on a series for being, like, wild and over the top when it's getting canceled, because, like, half of the series in manga, like, in Shonen Jump do that. Like, I didn't like, we joke about it with series like Red Hood, but it does feel cruel to be like, you went off the rails. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like if I was getting canceled too, I'd be like, I don't know, fuck it. Maybe the Earth's like a real person. I don't know. Like, I feel like there was a core to this series that could have been cool. Because if you had just built upon more of, like, the raising a kid aspect and, like, playing into this weird family thing. Because there are, like, legitimately 2 moments that I was like, this is, like, a cool manga thing. And we've talked about one of them. The family meeting is legitimately a cool moment. It sucks afterwards because they don't actually talk her down or anything like that. They just kind of let her walk all over them until they're like, family. And then she's like, all right, I'll give you another chance. But the other one is when they're like, hey, we can't get the rock that Kareri is in to stop. And they're like, the only way to do it is, like, fire a direct burst of energy. And they're like, oh, like a game of peekaboo? And I was like, that's cool. Like, it's dumb. That's a great idea. It's so stupid, but you're playing it. Like, the idea of them going to space, you should have been playing with, like, it's like playing Up or something like that. Like, just do dumb, like, raising kid things, and there would be a much more entertaining series. But as it is, like, I thought it was mediocre at the start, and then it gets very obnoxious, as every chapter is just about characters despairing because they think their loved one is dead, and then they're not because they thought of like a time they went to a carnival or something like that. They're like, oh yeah, we rule, we're a family, and then the person comes back or whatever, and then it just becomes wild at the end, and you leave and you're like, I don't really know what the message to all this was. Like,
the message was, if you believe in someone that you love, then that everything will be fine. You don't have to, like, follow that up with like a plan or taking action or anything. Just believe.
Yeah.
Just believe.
The Wikipedia article for this, it has like a reception page, and the reception page are like 2 positive quotes, and I was like, well, that's weird. One of them is just like, this series is like, and it's, whoever it is, someone from like Screen Rant or something like that, says the series is, quote, emotional. And I'm like, I guess that's true. It is very emotional. I don't know if I'd say it's a good kind of emotional, but it was there.
Yeah. I love it when they, do that, and it's like, well, is that a good or a bad? It's like, well, it was emotional.
Yeah, it's like, it's high praise for the series. Me falling down the stairs is, quote, emotional. And I'd probably, I was going to make a joke. Like, I'd probably prefer that to the series. But again, I didn't hate that as much. I think the series is bad. I think it's actually a little more cohesive than I think a lot of other people do. I think it flows together at the start. It's, just it falls apart towards the end. But I think that's true for a lot of canceled series.
Yeah. I thought the series was garbage well before it was on the road to being canceled early. We haven't even really talked about the non-starter of a subplot over the age acceleration that apparently all Earth children went through, where their childhood was essentially lost because they were artificially aged 10 years because, it's really difficult to teach 1-year-olds. So instead they start by teaching them at 10 years old after just artificially aging them, and they modify their family's memories. Also, I think that it really takes away from the series to have Reisuke be the person who's trying to raise Mamoru. If you then find out that Kareri had parents, because then what's so special about Reisuke, being there as a parent to a super child, and what makes that case exceptional if, the previous Earth child had parents raising them too.
Yeah.
So there's so many different problems I have with this series, but yeah, primary thing is I just do not believe in it. And for a series that goes this hard on all of its big emotional beats, not believing in it is a disconnect that is impossible to overcome. I could not go on the ride that the series took, and I hated every minute of it. So, all right. We've got other manga to talk about.
We're going to read about a good one next, Nick. Just you wait.
All right. Let's go. I guess we're going to have to double time through our recap. So let's start with My Hero Academia, chapter number 377, The Chain Thus Far. Bad stuff's happening because the heroes are losing their advantage left and right. People are getting warped all over. Villains are knocking over the heroes in all the different situations. First thing that we see in this chapter is the Aizawa team getting swarmed by twice clones that Toga has summoned that have been transported there by Kurogiri. And because the nullification ability is gone, now Shigaraki's quirks can actually activate. And that immediately disrupts the big floating cage arena that they're in. The cell around them breaks. We see some people inside the depths of it trying to recover. They're losing control of it. And on top of that, Skeptic has hacked in. He's in. He's inside the Matrix, and he's going to take over everything. Not only is the big floating island thing under their control, but also they can even hack into freaking the UA bunkers and control them as well. So now all the people taking shelter inside there aren't going to be safe. And Shigaraki / All For One is mocking Deku, saying that the entire world is going to be destroyed. And he's like, oh, and hey, what do you want to do? Hey, Deku, you want to sit down for a chat at the mall? I was like, wow, that's a callback. That was like that was like 7 years ago. Skeptic's bragging over everything, but there's a screen crackling in the corner. What's going on there? Deku realizes how horrible the situation they're in is, and he's like, I've got to keep this base in the air, and I've got to also keep an eye on Kurogiri so that Shigaraki can't escape. How do I do this? There's not even enough room to breathe, and all of the quirks that I've been using are now taking their toll on me. So I need a second to rest. My body can't get enough oxygen. And his previous wielders start talking to him and stuff. And one of them says, "There's a silver line to this dark cloud. Those of us who resonate within all for one, so we can peer into each other's inner workings. And at the moment, it seems he's in no position to manipulate the flesh he's possessing. So there's a little light, and the chain of events leading to this moment will be your power." And back in Skeptic's lair, that screen solidifies into an image, and there's a silhouette with pigtails who says, "I found you. It was really easy hunting you down. Nothing's too much for me. This is all for Gentle's sake." And it's fucking La Brava. La Brava's back, and she's hacking it.
It is legitimately probably the most hype that My Hero has been in maybe like a year or two, where you're like, oh, fuck yeah, this is an awesome moment.
Yeah, La Brava's there. Tsukauchi is seemingly watching her from the side, so it looks like she is working on behalf of the police, presumably doing some sort of thing to help Gentle get a bit of a plea bargain.
Aww.
I'm so happy that she's back, because fuck it, that was the best arc of My Hero Academia, was when those two are around, and they're back, or she's back at least.
Yeah,
we'll see if
I imagine we might see Gentle at some point, but yeah, I mean, this is like legitimately a very cool moment that like is just like a good turnabout moment for the heroes. I hope that's where we're leading to. We were kind of in like the depression Congo for a little bit, and it is like kind of like a distressing moment to see the portal open up and then just Twice Clothes tumble over all of Aizawa's group. You're like, ah, shit, and then the giant explosion immediately. Like there is a lot of like intimidation and terror to it, but like, yeah, it's super cool seeing the Brava.
Yeah. So this was a legitimately nice surprise, and it's a great choice to have a big, surprising, here's who's gonna, help turn things around thing, because legitimately was not expecting La Brava to show up in this particular moment. Very good.
Yeah. Let's, Nick, talk about Undead Unluck. This is number 142, Face Off. Void Volks, your build is as good as mine.
Fuku's going to do that for the entire promo.
She is not. That was one line, and now my voice hurts.
And then Void Volks is going to be Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. So everyone's like, wait, what's going on? Get this girl off the stage. Nico, Gina, and Chica are in the audience. And I do like Gina will have a great range of reactions throughout this chapter as she watches.
So many.
As Nico's like, it's about time for a title defense match that'll never make the history books. And Fuko's just like, oh shit. Void's fucking tall. He's taller than Andy. Maybe like, this is wild. Wait a minute, is he getting ready for battle already? Because he throws off his cloak. And he's like, what's your name? And she's like, Fuko Azuma. And he's like, I see. And then it just cuts, you throwing the cloak over her. And he's like, how do you spell it, with an F or an H? And she's like, an F. And he's like, here you go. You're my loyal fan. Skrika. And he's like, that's...
Two things right off the bat. One, this is so much more than Void got in his first run through. I like him so much more already. And two, it took me a little bit to realize what he's drawing there it's his symbol, which is just his name, like spelled out very strangely, because the V is in the center surrounding the I.
Yes.
But it's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of wacky. So he signs Fuko's jacket, and she's like, no, you've got it all wrong. I'm here to fight you. And they're talking to like, okay, he doesn't have unavoidable yet. Tragedy's always accompany negation ability manifestations, and his manifestation is when he kills his promising young opponent in this match. That's why Fuko got on her hands and knees to convince the opponent to back out. Then she could take on the tragedy instead and persuade Void to join the fight in union. So essentially, to succeed at this quest is making Void recognize her as an enemy. It's a requirement for it. And it's not happening right now. He's literally taking a picture with her. Like, he's doing like a little, like, peace fingers, like, say cheese. And Fuko just has this face like, she's like, no, it's not.
Take me seriously.
Yeah. And they're like, this isn't working, anything like that. But Fuko's just like, hey, remember what you said a while ago, Mr. Nico, about me losing people's faith? Like, I'm not going to use the mind control on this guy. Like, I've already tampered with people's lives badly enough already. I've got no problem with distorting facts about the rest of the world. But I want to meet everyone as myself. No gimmicks. Because they're like, hey, we could, like, change his memories to make you think you're, like, a world champion boxer or something like that. Like, no, we're not going to do that. So, like, all right. Have it your way. Leave everything to us. So Fuko's just like, Void Volks, what? If you're looking for me to thank that, or if you're looking to thank me, then, and she gives him like a glare, and then we just get a shot of Fuko's face getting punched in. It doesn't actually happen. Fuko like stumbles backwards. She's like, wait, was that your bloodlust? And Void's like, wait, do you really plan on fighting me? You shouldn't look like it, but you don't dabble in the sport. But listen up. Boxing is the simplest and fairest form of entertainment, and the weight classes are heavily divided, allowing everyone to pick the world that suits them. They train, issue challenges, and compete for strength. You and I are from different worlds. It's not a matter of who's better than who. You should shoot to be number one in your own realm. So then Fuko starts doing like a boxing stance and like doing like the shuffle, and he's like, no, you weren't listening. I told you. And she's like, the same. We're born on planet Earth. We're both people who inhabit it. The rules you speak of don't matter. I'm not here as a boxer. I'm here as another human being who wants to box with you. And he's like, all right, stop the cameras. And Fuko,
all right, no one film me beating the shit out of this tiny girl.
And she's like, keep those bitches rolling. And he punches, and he catches just her cloak. She comes underneath, catches him in the like a body shot in the abdomen. He's like, oh, she ducked and landed a body shot, although her punches are light. And then Fuko like kind of stumbles backwards and has like the blood spurt out. And he's like, yeah, fuck it, I like the cut of your jib. Hey, will any last minute opponent do? Because like bigwig sponsors would be up in arms or everything like that. And Fuko's like, that won't be a problem. If you've given it the okay, Mr. Void, then I'll just cast a little spell. And this is where we see Mr. Nico's technology come into effect. Just be like, oh, you can manipulate people's minds to make sure these events happen. Because they're all just like, this doesn't really feel like something we should allow. And it's like next panel, everyone's like, this fucking rules. I can't wait. And Void's like, I get what's going on. But oh well, as long as I get to fight you. And he's like, sorry about that. I'm pretty disappointed in myself. I got a smidgen stronger and forgot all about my past. I used to fight day and night, no rules attached, very dirty. I was lucky enough to duke it out with all sorts of tough guys you've never seen before. So take it easy. I'll see you in the ring. And like, there's a shot of Gina having to be physically held back because she wants to storm this stage.
Yeah.
And they, Nico and them get up there, and Fuko passes straight out. Like they have like a tourniquet already ready for, and they're like, holy shit, that just like brief like grazing she got fucked her up and like basically knocked her on her ass. And everyone's like, oh wow, this is crazy. Fuko's like, yeah, if I had bitten my lip, I would have passed out completely. And Nico's like, what's your plan? Because your punch didn't even affect him. And we cut over to Void, who's like leaned against a wall. And he's like, what the fuck kind of punch was that? It fucked me up from the inside out. This is going to rule. And that's the end of the chapter. We get we get a shot of the boxing ring. It's January 31st, 1999. Will Smith's Millennium is going to hit any day now. Quest, the captured negator, unavoidable. If they manage to succeed, they get the location of Remember.
Yeah, this was a great chapter, primarily because it reintroduces us to Void, and it's like, oh, Void could be very fun. It turns out.
We've very spontaneously have turned him into a much more interesting character.
Which, yeah, I will take that 100%. If you're going to run a rehash of your series and, indicate that there's going to be differences, you might as well go all the way with it. Hint, hint, for something we'll talk about in a few minutes. But this is nice. I am actually hyped for this fight that they're going to have, and I did not think I was going to be. But yeah, here we go. All right. Very quickly, because there are 2 chapters of Chainsaw Man that have come out since the last time we talked about the series. When we had left off in chapter 115, Denji had suggested to Asa that she try eating starfish, and she actually takes them up in chapter 116. She points out, which ones are and are not edible. They get some cooking, and they, it's kind of like chow down for a little bit while kind of getting to know each other. Asa realizes she can't eat very much. She has a moment where she tries to eat some fish, and then she kind of laughs at her because she's kind of going bleh. And then she's like, "You're fun," and Asa's like, what do you mean fun? And then she says, "Well, what you say is really boring, but you're interesting to watch." And Asa has this very endearing moment where she's like, "Yeah, I am an interesting woman. I'm fun, right? Yeah, you're really good at noticing stuff. I'm charming, right?" And Jesus just kind of stares at her for a second, but then he says, "I like that attitude. Reminds me of an old friend."
I nearly cried at that moment. I was like,
She reminds him of Power.
I love Power so much.
Then she looks around and she sees that, because Denji's been gathering this one discarded uniform hat that's been in the hallway, so that then he can, when they get out, sell them. And she thinks of something, and so she finishes eating the fish and she says, "I think I have a way out of here, so help me." And Denji's like, "Well, what do you do?" And she says, "We gotta collect money." And so Denji, since he's been scouring the hallway for money, says, "All right, well, there's some money here, there's money here." And they run around. They keep running from hallway to hallway to hallway, piling this money up, taking stuff out of bags and wallets. And as they're running, they're having a good time as they're just kind of chasing each other through this place and gathering money together. And eventually they have all this stuff in a big backpack. And Denji says, "I think that we've got over 1,000,000 yen here. So what do we do with it?" And Asa says, "You gotta give it to me." And of course, Denji's like, "No, money!" So Asa says, "Look, once we're out of here, I'll grant you any request. Here you go."
So simple.
So simple.
My poor boy.
So Asa says, "Look, just do exactly as I say. Go over there, close your eyes, cover your ears." And Denji's like, "All right." And he goes to do that. And so Asa looks around to make sure no one's near herself. And she thinks to herself, "Okay, look, this is insane, but it doesn't matter. It matters what I perceive of it." So she takes a breath and she puts the bag on the ground and says, "I'm going to pay the 1,000,000 yen in this bag and buy this aquarium." And she puts her hand on the glass of a tank and says, "Aquarium spear." This was a very cool chapter and would have potentially been my chapter of the week for many different reasons. The conclusion, the bonding between Denji and Asa, that wasn't the chapter this week. It was this one, which is also not bad.
Also pretty well. We also, I think, skipped over the fact that she asks eventually why he saves money. And he's like, "I kind of got this little sister at home, and she's super smart, and I want to take her to college," which is a big thing. Because Asa's like, "Oh, he's not a complete
changes her
scumbag."
Perception of him. Yeah. So, speaking of Denji and changing perception, Denji realizes, wait a minute, why am I just mindlessly obeying this girl? I promised myself I would stop doing that. But she'll do whatever I want if I do this. And then while he's thinking of that, he looks down and sees a fucking penguin. And he's like, "Penguin!"
It's the cutest fucking thing, man. He's just like, "It's a penguin!" Oh my god. I love Genji happy. He just fucking, when it's this sweet and innocent, he deserves to be happy. When he's a weirdo, is "I need boobs," you're like, "All right, man." But here, I love him. Look at this little guy.
Seems to not even notice that there are fish everywhere lying on the ground around him because the aquarium has fucking disappeared because Asa's made it into the aquarium spear, which is a polearm that has 2 metal sardines at the tip.
I love that the attorney was like, This is bullshit. You can't buy an aquarium for 100 million for $1,000,000 yen. That's not how much it costs. Don't you understand? There's like labor costs and things like that. It doesn't even cover the building.
But hey, the Attorney Devil has now emerged, so they can fight it. The Attorney Devil is really mad at Famine because he's like, "Fuck this! This is what was supposed to happen. Fuck you!" He goes to kill Asa. And hey, Yoshida's here. He gets to do something. He summons his squid tentacle devil thing and rips its arm off. And then immediately after that happens, Asa closes her eyes and shifts, and Yoru's in control now. They're reunited because the aquarium prison is out of the way. And she kind of like teases Asa, saying like, "What you're feeling guilty because of you have the guilt of running an aquarium. That's just like you, Asa." And then she starts wielding the aquarium spear, and she chucks it like a javelin, and it punctures the Eternity Devil, and who explodes into guts and fish and sharks. It's
wonderful.
Great.
It's absolutely beautiful. A great 2-page spread.
Blood pours out everywhere, as well as the fish. The devil hunting crew all have reactions, including the dickbag president, who looks at her and is like, "Wait a minute, that power," and seems to realize something. Denji's still got the penguin. He wants to keep...
He's just like, "Oh, this little guy."
Famine watches all this from a perch above, and she seems to kind of meet eyes with Yoshida, who seems to have realized what happened there. But we don't really get any more focus on that than the
I hate Yoshida so much because something fucking mischievous is going on. The dude was like, "Yeah, would you kill death for us, Denji?" Like, this dude knows something.
There's a brief montage of them kind of explaining things to the police. Denji's kind of sad that he has to give the penguin back to the zookeeper, the aquarium keeper, whatever. But then he walks Asa home because, he's a good guy. And Asa says as they're getting back, "Man, that'd be the worst date ever." And Denji says, "It wasn't so bad. Aww. I got to touch a penguin."
Sweet. I love you, buddy.
And then Denji brings up like, "Hey, you said you'd grant me any request." And Asa's like, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, then go on another date with me. Because look, I've got more experience dating, so I'll teach you how to have the best dates ever." And Asa's in shock over this for a second, and she's like, "Okay, teach me." And he gives her the peace sign, and it looks like we're gonna have a nice, cool freeze frame credits moment.
All right, let's wrap this up and start talking about kaiju, Nick.
And Yoru appears next to Asa and says, "I see. This feeling must be love. Like, I don't feel any affection for this punk, so the only possibility for why I'm feeling it right now is because I share your brain." And Asa, of course, gets embarrassed over this. But before she can really react to this, Yoru is like, "All right, now we can go forward with the plan." And she takes over Asa's body and smacks Denji on the forehead and says, "Denji's spinal cord sword." Now, look, I fully realize that there are a million different reasons that this is never going to work. But, man, that ending the chapter on that after we had that nice happy ending.
Such a mood whiplash. The last chapter was so sweet and so cute and like really hopeful. And then this chapter ends, you're like, no! Like actively shouting at the manga, like, you can't keep getting away with this!
Is Asa gonna die? Don't do that! Yeah, so I guess we'll see how that turns out. We'll see if Denji even, like, fucking realizes what happens after this definitely doesn't work. Or how he reacts when it does work, but he's still alive because he's Denji and he'll be fine. We gotta talk about Kaiju number 8, though.
Let's talk about it, Nick. Kaiju! Roar!
Roar! All of the new Kaiju are squaring off with different people. All of them have been given designations now. People are like, holy shit, there's so many Kaiju. Kaiju number 15, the humanoid female-looking Kaiju, is squaring off with Kikoru.
Is it female, Nick, just because it clearly has, like, Kaiju boobs?
Kaijubes, if you will, yeah.
I hate that word so much.
Yeah, Kikoru notices it's going to attack. She tells the officers with her, like, you gotta evade, and she evades, but they don't. They turn into limbs. This does not qualify for the Severed Limb Award. Only limbs are left. That doesn't count.
It's the anti-bleach award. It's
exactly.
No, Clorox is the one who makes bleach. It's the what's the thing that counteracts a cleaning product? It's the Tide Award. There we go.
Okay.
That feels like
I was starting to think it too.
I was gonna say that feels like it's just adjacent, not really opposite. So hold on, I can find this out. What's the opposite of bleach? Keep going, Nick. I'll bring back the knowledge as it happens.
Yep. So yeah, Kaiju number 15 takes on that form that resembles Kikoru, except like color inverted, and starts mocking her for a bit, and then freaking her captain, whatever, starts going like, "Oh, that's the plan. They're trying to separate and eliminate our main forces by taking on the strong officers and stuff." And so everyone's concerned about Kikoru because she's still young and a rookie. But her captain says, like, hey, I can't send you back up. You got to beat that thing by yourself. But Kikoru thinks to herself, like, every time that I've been in a really dire situation, I've just been getting bailed out of trouble when I needed it most. At time after time after time, and we get some flashbacks through the course of the series how, like, someone else was the one who took down the really powerful threat. But she says to her captain, that was my plan from the start. And she goes, full release and zoom, power up and stuff. And everyone's like, all right, let's fucking do this. All the different officers who are squaring off against their individual opponents declare who they're going after. And we end on a 2-page spread of Kikoru squaring off with Kaiju number 15 as she takes a battle stance.
It's very exciting for like 3 of these fights. 4 of them. There's the one where I'm like, I don't even know who you two are. I don't like, I'm sure you have showed up, but I could not give less of a shit about that. And I'm trying to think, which one are they fighting? Okay, they're not fighting the super interesting monster thing, like floating book thing or whatever.
No, Mina's fighting that thing, and it's like, all right.
I'm curious to see. She's fighting it from super far away or whatever, but yeah, we shall see. It's cool. I feel like this was almost like a nothing chapter because it kind of just didn't accomplish anything for where we were last time, but Shonen and Square Off kind of had energy.
Yeah, it was the ending of last chapter, but more of that.
Now, Nick, if you're going to talk about a chapter where things happen, we had to talk. Well, we can't because we had to talk about 2 chapters where things happen.
Whoa, trigger!
Whoa, trigger!
Yeah. Hey, look. We're still in the away mission test.
Now, Nick, I know
26 and 27.
I know we said the same thing when we came into 2022, and we may have even said it when we came into 2021. Hey, I know we're still in the selection exam, but
hey, a little bit of stuff happened this time, and it feels like things are kind of accelerating. Osama brings up what their big turnaround thing is going to be. It's amazing because it's the most boring thing ever, but I love it. Which is that, okay, at the end of the universal assignments, there's a bunch of video clip problems, and so someone's like, I'm going to use my phone's camera, and everyone starts to say, no, that won't work because it blocks like recording them and stuff, and someone's like, no, I'm going to take a picture of the list of questions after the video clip plays. And then what we'll do is each of us will just take some of those questions, focus on them, and then together we'll watch the same video clips on everyone else's laptops over and over and over again. All of us will watch it on Suwa's, and then Ui's, and then Oki's, and then Katori's. So then each of us will be focusing on 4 different questions and getting to watch for them 4 different times in order to answer them. And then we'll combine all those answers and we'll get like max points because we'll each have a very likely correct 20 correctly answered questions. And it's like, all right, sure. It's, it's doing homework in the age of Google Drive. This is smart. Work smarter, not harder. Use the tools and ability to collaborate in order to, do what you want to do. Very boring, but very sensible.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. It's good. It takes about 7 pages to get through.
So much. Because then he also has to justify like that they won't get penalized for doing it this way, because he points out that one of the things that it's scoring is not just observation and memorization, it's creativity. So having a creative solution to having a best possible answer. But then they have several more pages where they're like, which teams should we share the strategy with? And they decide to share it with Wakamura because Katori's being soon for her squad mates and is kind of worried about them being in last place. They share it with like a couple of different ones. They also share it with Hughes' squad. In response, Wakamura's squad sends over advice on how Katori can use her omnipenchant skill within the tests, and is like, basically she's a blue mage. She gets access to more skills the more opponents she squares off with in the simulations. And still Katori's like, I don't know, this isn't great, but they're like, no, like this expands all the stuff that we can potentially do, basically. And then there's some stuff with Kitora's squad and other stuff. Look, I'm condensing a little bit. There's some stuff here that maybe will be interesting later, but right now it's like we can skip over it. It's not that important. They get to the simulated battles again. The first one, they are on the verge of actually pushing the advantage and winning, but they can't get enough of a scoring difference in order to actually win. So instead that they lose. Then they go up against Kizoa's squad, and they basically get lured into a trap from patterns that have developed over the course of the last 2 times that they've gone against each other. They end up getting cluster bombed and can't overcome the difference, and they lose. And so they realize, like, oh, we just fell prey to their one-time use cheese strat, and it really worked out for them. We see Kizoa's squad kind of reacting to this. There's some concern being exchanged amongst the team over how much time they spent developing the strategy versus working on all the, written answers and stuff. And Kikuchihara also says to Sana, like, hey, are you okay with, Katori getting destroyed like that? And she's like, she'll be fine. And sure enough, Katori is actually looking over this stuff and is like, Hana, good job. She's got a big smile on her face. It's potentially the happiest we have ever seen her, honestly. She's just happy her squad mate did a good job. And far from being bummed out like we saw her in a previous chapter, she actually kind of like gets after Osama's like, hey, come on, Four Eyes, let's go and win some matches. And everyone's still pumped up to keep on going. And that's the 2 chapters for this month.
Yeah, I mean, they're fine chapters. We get some cool little moments. There's a lot of like little tiny, but this is what you say for every fucking World Trigger chapter, where you're like, there's a lot of little tiny character moments. So you're either somebody who really loves these moments, you're like, I'm gonna read and dissect so many of these things, or like if you're looking for like the main things, like, I don't know, Samo I think has a plan to help his team get a lot of points. Probably some other teams will also figure out something kind of equivalent, since I imagine there are more than one person is going to say like, oh, hey, creativity is the suggestion here or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, Katori cares a lot about her teammates, so she's very happy to help one and very excited to see another one do well, even though it's against them.
Yep. That's probably like my favorite little thing that happened this week was like, hey, if we're going to continue this whole rehabilitate Katori so that she's like an actual character that might be going with this group on the mission, then this is the kind of stuff that we kind of need from her.
Yes.
Yeah, all the test taking stuff's like, well, it's test taking stuff. So
test taking stuff, that's what's fun. Nick,
oh man, let me tell you the thing I miss most about being a teenager is studying techniques.
It's true. Nick, let's talk about Eden Zero. Nick, this is chapter 222, A Happy World. Now, I don't know if you heard the big news. Hero's going to be making another manga sometime soon. Yep. Monthly manga. It's going to be a short one, he says, with different characters. So maybe Urza and fucking Siegfried won't show up in this manga as well. I hope they both.
Or maybe they'll just be the only characters.
Yeah, I hope they both show up in the first chapter. So Shiki and Rebecca are on Grand Blue still, and they're like, yeah, this is crazy. Like, we had our memories from the other world. It's very sweet. And Rebecca's like, yeah, you were my weapon on the other world. Happy's like, yeah, I was a robot then. And they're like, wait, you're not a robot in this world? And Happy's like, nope, flesh and blood. And you're like, okay, cool. So the one thing that was different about this Happy is no longer there. It's just Happy from fucking Fairy Tail again.
Yeah, at least it makes sense. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a different timeline. He didn't go into that accident that, would have killed him if he weren't turned into a robot. That makes
just
sense.
Because that's just how this universe works.
Sure.
They've overwritten, I guess, themselves in this universe, and that's what's happening. They're like, yeah, there's no do-overs. I don't have Cat Leaper, but it's okay. Everything will work itself out. He goes to talk to the Castellan. The Castellan's like, oh, yes, what's going on? She's like, don't do this whole shit. I get it. You're going to try to stop me from going because ether's running out. You don't want me.
Actually, no.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but you're free to leave whatever the fuck you want. Ziggy has a device that recycles it, and now our planet is more ether than ever. And they're like, oh, okay, well, cool. And he's like, yep, and here's your ship. And like it just immediately brings them over. And he's like, here's Eden Zero. Your granddad said you'd need it one day, so it's yours now. It's fucking gigantic. There you go. And they're like, cool. And he has to say goodbye to everybody. He like says goodbye to fucking Michael, three random people in the audience, and then the Robot King. And you're like, who the fuck are Mithra, John, and Annie? Why those three specifically? Doesn't matter.
I'm sure he probably mentioned them in that like first chapter montage when they talked about how he would fix everyone when he didn't actually fix them or some shit. It actually really pissed me off, this goodbye with Michael, because there's just this kind of like, because Michael says, could I come with you? And she's like, no, it's going to be dangerous. It's like, you've got fucking couch po on your ship.
I was going to say, you have like 4 civilians on your fucking ship. What are you talking about?
Just this very brief thing of like, should I be like a supporting character? It's like, no, because like I don't know what your gimmick is. You're just a smiling robot.
You don't have enough of a goofy personality or whatever. You're like, you have a fucking normal ass cat in your crew now. He's just the cat. He can't do anything else now. Bring this robot. Who cares? You have a giant ship. Just bring him.
Have him be the toenail of Eden's or something. Like,
come
on.
He's like, I'm the smiley face of Eden. You're like, okay, sure. They get on the ship. They're like, okay, cool. It's like we're right where we left off. We have to get the crew back together. First, we're gonna go find Wise. We're gonna go to Norma. And they're like, hey, what'll happen? They're like, this is gonna be crazy, right? And like, oh, you don't even like know Wise, right? Because you didn't have that accident. They're like, no, we met him for a different reason. We have the same relationships last time. I guess you could say that history is a way of repairing itself. This world is different. It's just like we're following the same basic history as before. Jiggy's like, I don't get it, but I'm going to find our friends, and then we're going to go save Mother. So it's going to be super cool. And then Shiki sits down in the chair, and it's like, oh, protocol, burp, burp, burp. And then who should show up, Nick?
It's Witch's feet.
It's Witch's feet.
And they're attached to Witch, yes.
And Witch is there, and she's like, I'm Witch, the Demon King's 4 shining stars. And everyone's crying because they're like, oh, I remember. And then we get a montage of various moments of Sister or Witch's interaction with them, including a scene where I guess Wise just wanted to rub suntan lotion on her back or something like that. It's this weird thing. Look, Nick. So at the end,
it's like the previous chapter where the montage of Rebecca and Shiki's memories included like Shiki staring up her skirt.
Yeah, so here's the thing, Nick. At the end of Lost, like the whole final episode was about a bunch of characters having to like in the Sideways universe remember their old lives, essentially, in the other universe. And like all of it is, framed with a montage of like their most iconic moments throughout the series. And I'm just thinking how funny it'd be if like in the middle of all that, each one of them had a shot where like somebody like knocks their shirt off or like they trip and fall and their butts in the air or something like that. You're just like, why is this shot here? Why is there always like a weird sexual thing in like the most iconic moments of these characters? But they're like, yeah, Witch is here. This is great. Witch, I hereby order you to never die again. So, Nick, everything's going great. This universe, everything works out.
Yeah, evidently.
I love that they don't have to do anything. Like, it's just
nothing.
Like, they're like, I showed up. Witch is still here. Fucking Happy's a healthy robot. Like, everything's fucking cool, dude. So I guess we're going to finally meet Valkyrie, and I don't know, maybe all of them will be married to the fucking dark shining star that they were reflected to earlier or whatever.
Yeah, I don't mean to, like, because we have made observation of how Undead Unluck and Eden Zero are doing this resetting the universe thing at the same time by sheer coincidence. It's not fair to compare them, but I do want to just point out how we are 2 chapters deep into being in the new universe. There's been no conflict so far. In the very first chapter of Undead Unluck, we saw Fuko swipe up Ano Un and explain the whole situation to them while also showing off how much of a cool badass she was. And then in the second chapter, she fucking, fought a giant, basically. So, like, just have something happen that's not just like, and we're all together. Remember when that person was sexual? I sure do.
Yeah.
Okay, we're together. Just do something.
It's very, very, very much like a very nothing burger of a chapter where you're just like, what am am I just reading the series again? Like, I just don't understand.
Where's the beef?
Yeah, very much.
Akane-banashi, story 45, 2 steps. Akane has been given the story of the Oiron and the client, and she's not suited to the role of the Oiron. The story and Diller are not suited for each other. Urara points that out to Akane and does not tell her what to do. She just says, you got to think it for yourself, and bear in mind, you've only got 2 more chances to work this out. Because it's explained that she's going to be practicing the story in front of Urara, and she's only being given 3 attempts to actually perform it for her. And if she can't do that in time, then she's not going to have any more guidance in telling the story. She's not going to be able to master it. And Rokuro's big event thing is in a couple of months. And they're like, yep, you've got a Resawa practice on June 18th at 1 o'clock. And I'm going to contact you later about scheduling our next session. And Akane is like, wait, what? And Urara's like, yeah, you've got to have the story ready. But that shouldn't be a problem. Just master the story in time. And that's just kind of it. Like, that's the limit of her guidance. Just like, go figure it out, perform it for me. If it doesn't work, I'll tell you it hasn't worked out, and that's it. She got to work it all out herself. Yeah. So the first thing that happens where people try to give her insight, she's talking with Kyoji, and I always forget this guy's name. Blonde-haired Aniki guy.
Nick.
Hank, yeah. So
no, I said Nick. Like, he's you.
Oh, no, he's not me.
He's not as cool as you, sure, but
he's got more hair. So,
that's his worst feature.
Oh, okay. I'll take that.
There you go.
So she has explained all this whole situation to them off screen, and they're like, God, you're just always like rushing into situations, aren't you? Can't you just like chill out? And he also brings up, like, how is it that you've trained with your master for 7 years and you only have 5 stories that you've mastered? And Akane explains, like, well, I actually know a bunch of stories from memory because I would listen to a bunch of CDs of Rakugo from home or at the library, and I would memorize them that way. But Kyoji's like, okay, but you can't do a public performance of a story that you've just learned on your own that way because you haven't had anyone give you feedback for it. And she says, yeah, I get that, but I want to, make it to the next ranking really quickly, and you've got to know more stories in order to do that. But Master was always training me just based on solid fundamentals rather than in learning new stories, quality over quantity. And it was really difficult for me to master a story in his eyes, so it was very difficult to add more, and, that's kind of my fault just based on, like, the way I would go about things while learning under him, too. And she also placed some pride on herself. Like, look, I don't just want to be just a Rakugoka. I want to be an Arakawa school Shinuchi. And I just want to meet the criteria to advance to that point as soon as I could. So she's been kind of single-minded in her focus, and now it's kind of showing some drawbacks to that. So her aunties give her a little bit of advice, like, okay, in terms of, like, playing an Oiron is a lady of the night, skilled at seducing men with her charms. And Kyoji says, if you ask me if Akane fits that image, I'd have to say no.
Aww.
It's like, yeah. So Akane's like, I guess I can't do this. And Kyoji's like, well, no, not necessarily. Sometimes the little details can be the key to turning a weakness into a strength.
Yeah, but... like sometimes I forget a reference to something. So instead of like stumbling there, I just keep barreling through the fact I don't know it, and then you just made a door. You just slammed. You know what? Everything fits in the square hole if you just force it down hard enough.
Goes in the square hole. Yep. So But they bring up like, look, sometimes as well, you just gotta shelve a story because you're not able to master it. So just don't do it, basically. But hey, you've got to keep on pushing along until you find out whether or not it will happen. And that's what you're good at, just keep going forward. So we see several different things that Akane tries to do in order to master this. She meets up with her friend from school, Risa, whom we've seen maybe once before in the series, I think. And they go to a beauty school, and she dresses up as an Oiron to kind of like get a feeling of like, oh yeah, it's like this makes it kind of hard to move around, and the head ornament weighs on my neck, so I think this will let me do it. But then the next time she performs for Aurora, she's like, yeah, you're too stiff. I get you. It seems like you're trying to express the feel of the kimono and the head ornament, but you're going about it way too literally. So Akane's like, okay, well then, what should I do to understand the way I run better? And Urara says, good question. You're young. Why don't you just go on a date? And at least she gives her a piece of advice this time, as opposed to just like, figure it out.
Well, I like it because she's just like, she hears it's like, whatever, because they're like, many more sessions happened.
just she ignores it. She doesn't take the advice at that session. So she goes about studying. She tries to study, Oiron stuff, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I get it now. This, I'm studying brothel culture and stuff, and so this will help me get it." And after all that, she performs again. It's June now, and Aurora says, "Yeah, you feel like just an armchair theorist. You don't have any practical sense of what this is supposed to feel like, and now you've only got 5 days until the recital session. I mean, are you going to be able to do this? Do you have time?" So Akane's like, well, then what can I do? And she thinks about all the advice that she's gotten from all of her mentors and senpais and stuff. And she decides to do something different. We see Jumbo, who's just in some casual clothes, shorts and t-shirt. He looks like he could be going to like gym class, basically. Yeah. And he's like, it's weird that Akane invited me out here to eat. But Akane meets up with him, and she's kind of acting cuter than before. She starts to call him Jumbo, and then she goes, hi, Ozaki. Long time, huh? I've been so excited to see you. And he's like, what the fuck are you, what's going on? And she's like, let's go eat some food. And Akane's like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. But Uraro seemed to be insinuating that I need experience to act like an Oiron. Which, if that means going on a date, like, I can't go out with one of the other apprentices. I can't go out with fucking Kareshi. I can't go out with that weird other...
I love her reason. She's like, I can't go out with the apprentices. They're like family. I can't go out with him because he would never do it.
He would never do it.
And then I won't go out with the other guy because he absolutely will do it. And no, fuck that.
No, not... Which means, Jumbo, it's got to be you. Yeah. Okay, and so Jumbo's like, what is with this vibe she's giving off? I mean, like, she's always had that kind of, like, headstrong approach to everything. And that part of her hasn't changed. In fact, it's getting even worse. So, Akane and Jumbo are going on a fake date. And Jumbo doesn't seem to even realize that it's a date. So...
it's kind of cute and adorable in its own way. Like I'm like, oh, look at young love, and then you're like, she's just trying to find out, and she's like, I don't know, what would an Oiron feel like? I'm gonna go on a date with this dude and figure it out.
Yeah, it's I like seeing Akane like really going after drawing from all of her resources, all the people she knows, testing every one of her different purchases things, realizing it's not going to work. I got to live this. Guess I gotta go on a date with the guy. Fuck. So that's it. All right, let's blue box time.
Blue box.
It's chapter 84. How that made her feel. So Chinatsu and Taiki have run into Chinatsu's old friend, who thinks that they're on a date, and that Chinatsu has given up on basketball. Chinatsu's me like, I'm giving up. So she's like, oh yeah, I guess you always could do it all, and now you're living the good life off the court too, huh? And then her date kind of like smacks her in the back of the head. It's like, will you stop being an asshole to your friend? So she's just like, yeah, I think that she might just be agitated because we're because of the elevation and stuff. So yeah, we'll go now. But Taiki realizes that the girl is glaring at him, and Shinatsu apologizes, like, yeah, that was my old teammate. She went to AMA until junior high, but she went to another school starting in high school. And Taiki's like, yeah, I recognize her, because he would watch Shinatsu play basketball, so he recognized her from that. And he admits, like, yeah, she actually stood out more than Shinatsu-senpai did. But I'd heard that she quit, so don't really know anything about her personally. Now it's time for the two of them to part ways and, well, go back to the same house. But Taiki thinks for a second and says, hey, about what she said, you can do it. If anyone can do it, you can. You can dominate the basketball world. And it seems to reach her in some way.
Yeah.
The two of them ride the train back together. There's a cute little moment because they're both sitting down and they spot a pregnant woman boarding the train. So they each go to give up their seat at the same time, look at each other because they realize that they've both done it, and they just kind of laugh with each other.
Yeah, it's very silly.
Then it's the next day during practice. People are running around basketball practice. Meanwhile, Kyo is helping Taiki build up stamina. They're doing jump rope stuff, and they're like, hey, so there's that Winter Cup happening on Christmas, and I heard the team's going to eat together after practice. Last year we got together with our whole class, but this year, and their captain approaches and says, this year we have practice. Christmas Eve is no reason not to practice. It's so totally not about me wishing I wasn't alone or hating people who have girlfriends. He's fun.
Yeah.
And he specifically calls out Haru, like, aren't you glad? And Haru's like, I mean, yeah, sure. But Ayame's like, yeah, but my sister's upset that he's not going to be on a date with her. Hina has overheard this, and she feels kind of guilty about overhearing it and thinking to herself, like, oh, so Taiki's not going to be with Chinatsu on Christmas. But I really, I shouldn't be thinking this way. I shouldn't be still trying to cling on to hope. Her friend says, hey, you don't necessarily have to come to practice on Christmas, so what are you going to do? But she says that she'll join in. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, in the training room, Haru is getting strong. He's lifting weights. Taiki joins him, and he's like, hey, I wanted to ask you about something. And he hesitates for a second before he's like, hey, it's about Yumeka, the girl who used to be on the basketball team. And Haru gets a very pissed off look on his face. It's like, very disgusted. And he's like, yeah, I haven't heard her name in a long time. And Taiki's like, yeah, I ran into her the other day. And immediately Haru's like, oh, was Chi there too? How did you know? Oh, who knows? Because Haru, has a sense of restraint and smoothness, and he's like, yeah, look, I know you'll freak out over this, so I won't press the issue. Okay, so Taiki's like, yeah, I want to know why Yumeka quit, and Haru admits, I don't really know the details. She's, not the type who would confide in others, but I don't think there's any way she would start to hate basketball, and I think that she was the most shocked person when she announced that she was going to quit, because they had known each other since they were 7. They were always playing together. You know how she always comes to practice really early in the morning? She told me that she had to do it in order to ever catch up with Yumeka. And of course, that's a big reason that Taiki noticed Chinatsu, and they start to know each other, because they would both show up to the gym early.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then why the hell has all this happened? Why has her friend and teammate and this person she admired, why did she ask Chinatsu if she'd quit basketball? And I wonder how that made Chinatsu feel. Oh. And now Taiki's got a toothache. This is seemingly random. This has no connection to anything that's been happening.
So fucking, so contrived to get us... it's beautiful in its artistry, because you're just like, I suddenly have a toothache, better go to the dentist. I wonder who's there at the dentist.
Oh my gosh, is it Yumeka? It's Yumeka, and she's got her hair braided and she's got glasses on. She looks plain, quote unquote. So what's going on here? They've run into each other again. Doop-a-doop-a-doo.
Yep. This is a fine chapter. I really don't have too much to say on it. Like,
Yeah.
I kind of enjoy how extremely contrived and silly the ending is. So I guess we'll see where we go from there.
Oh, Ginka and Luna.
No.
What's happening? What's happening, Quinn?
You know what's here. You know what is here.
Oh, is it time to do a thing that involves us morging?
Yes. I don't know why I did a Katy Perry dick shower move. Morg.
Cipher Academy, everybody! It's Morgan time. Chapter 1. What am I talking about? I almost said 100 something.
Oh, we can dream. We can dream.
I'm sure if you rearrange the numbers into whatever it spells out, then maybe it'll spell 100 one of these days. Chapter 7. The one who solves last solves best. Ugh. I don't think that's correct. Last time it turns out that there are more people who've got code-solving glasses. What the devil? Turns out they're not as good as the pair that Iroha has. They just let her sort out pieces by color. But it's going to help her to do stuff. But Iroha points out, like, hey, freaking Obero's got, like, super solvy stuff glasses. And Toshisai says, Iroha-zaka, could you just, like, continue as if I didn't know about that?
I fucking love that moment. She's like, could you not drop this gigantic piece of information about confirming all of my suspicions from before in the middle of this very stressful exam?
It's very distracting.
She's like, could you not fucking drop this knowledge on me, you piece of shit? I love it. She's so calm and collected, but you're like, God, like she has her arms crossed. You know that one hand's just like crushing her fucking arms. Just like, this dumb motherfucker. I hate him so much.
Toshisai, between this and her random interjection of ass-based slang, is quickly becoming one of my new favorite characters.
I love her. She's just so pissed constantly.
So yeah, a bunch of people have similar types of things, and so she's like, "What, did you think that you were special or something like that? Did you think that you're the only one that flirt has her eyes set on?" And she has a little bit of a flashback to when, she got given kind of the same buttering up that Iroha got. Like, oh, you're the only one I'm sure who understands the value of my inventions and stuff. So she's been misled, and now she's pissed off at her. So makes sense. But Iroha's like, hey, what's wrong? You seems like you're thinking about the same thing. And Toshisai's like, oh my god, shut up. So we go back over the point that they have the 3 codes to go over as they're in the middle of the Cassette Quartet. So Iroha ties his hair back in order to get serious, and he starts looking over stuff like, oh, hey, there's a bit here that looks like it's Japanese vowel sounds, and this part looks like it's part of the syllabary table. But Toshisai keeps on looking over stuff, and she's also looking at other people, and she at her teammates rather, and she thinks they seem to be thinking the same thing, but not as fast as me. So she talks to Kasuri and starts to bring up something, but Iroha goes, guys, look! If you just block out bunches of the text, then it spells out this stuff, and there's a hidden text thing. It says just filled in the gaps. Huh? It's like, yeah, it's a dummy answer, Iroha. It's a dummy answer that says, you idiot, this isn't the right answer.
I love it, because we just had to get her response, which is like, do you think that's the right answer? Huh, champ?
No.
Do you think you got it?
No.
Do you think we need to maybe take this one back to the drawing board another time? But she can't be that animated. She just has to be like, God damn it.
That's the right answer.
Do you think the answer to the quiz is you're a dumb idiot? No, I don't think that's the answer to it.
So she's like, no, look, it's okay. See, look, if we take your 3rd sheet, we actually have an advantage at this point, because you could solve this with 2 sheets, but with 3, it becomes more apparent. A pattern emerges because parts of the tables overlap. The same symbol is in several points on the board, and you can decode the text that emerges from there. And the symbols that come out are like to ze tsu ro ta o su. And so they start trying to figure out, like, what does this mean, huh? Kareri's like kind of like also assessing Toshizai in her head, like I actually kind of trace faster than she does, but she's still quite good at it. The teacher is going over stuff. Toshizai looks over stuff and she's like, topple discontinuity theory, which is a term I'm very familiar with and totally know the definition of. But she looks to Iroha and says, well, what do you think? He's like, I don't know. It looks like that, but it doesn't quite seem right because like the dummy answer was actually a neater fit. And so Toshizai is like, okay, what do you think, Kusuri? And Kusuri's like, she starts to give an input while recognizing she's actually like giving us each a chance to shine while consulting with us, guy in the conversation. So they bring up like, it's got to be like some sort of an anagram. You rearrange the symbols into the actual answer. And they realize like, wait, if you rearrange it, it spells out Rosetta Stone, like the famous Rosetta Stone that was a key to deciphering ancient languages. Iroha, is in wonder over this, but he's like, wait, I don't think this is right either. And so they're like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I don't know. Rosetta Stone, I think, is the right answer, but only for 3 puzzles mixing together. So I guess for a Cassatette quartet, the right answer would be more different still. And Toshizai's like, okay, you're kind of like just, droning on. So if you've got an idea, just like go for it and spit it out. So Iroha looks around and he looks at Omamuro and he looks at Yugata and then he's like, no. Hey, Oboro and Umitsubabe, can I get your help? And they're like, well, we fucking hate you. What are you doing? What are you doing? At first, like, Umitsubame tries to be like, hey, we're trying to work out the code. Can you butt out for a second? And he's like, no, I'll bring my desk over. Because can I borrow like if you guys are friends of Kagoe's, then we were all connected and stuff. Also, can you give me a charger? Because my glasses are out of battery.
I fucking love this fucking little fucking dumb gremlin. Like, he's so optimistic. He's like, hey, can you work together? Also, I forgot my charger. And like, they're not being inconsiderate. They're just really misreading every relationship they have. They're like, well, we're friends. We both have we both bought glasses from the same strange lady here.
And Oboro's like, fuck you, kid. What are you trying to do? Like, trying to be the class lead private? You want an alliance? Just try and fucking say so. What do you fucking think you could actually achieve? And Iroha says, like, well, if I become the class leading private, I'll end all wars in the world.
Using my morgues, I will end all the wars. It'll be simple. I'll start by using my morgues to create a television show about my morgue-related characters. That'll be the first step towards winning over the public.
And then I'll re-release the movie that previously failed.
Yeah. I'll create an MMO based on my popular morgue characters that'll have the world enthralled so no one will bother going to war. They'll be too busy playing. And you can use that game to earn more morgues.
Iroha is briefly, horrified with himself because he's like, oh my god, I just said something that I can never possibly do. But Oboro just kind of like turns away and lets him go. And Toshizai says to Iroha, look, it doesn't matter if they're for you or against you. At Cipher Academy, no one laughs at other people's strategic dreams.
That's actually like a pretty cute, cool and cute moment. Like, oh.
It's actually kind of cool. And it's the kind of thing that's like, oh, this is what is great about shonen manga. Stupid stuff is cool now. Like,
yeah.
So
it's refreshing to not have like everyone be like, look at the loser, ha. Everyone's just like, look, I may not. You go for it, kid.
So Oboro now actually decides to hear out Iroha, who says, okay, look, the code name for the test is Cassatette Quartet. We got to the point where we're at right now because we stacked our three sheets together to make 3 layers. A normal 2-person cell would have 2 sheets and 2 layers. And that doesn't feel right to me. And so they started to bring up like, oh yeah, well, but if you stack codes on top of each other, that makes things different, right? And Iroha says if you put two teams' two puzzles together with another team's two puzzles, then you've got a true quartet. And so he puts an additional stack on top of what they've got. And now there are only 4 letters that are spelled out together. Tato o su. And so like, okay, well, is this an anagram? What's it an anagram for? Is it of like tortoise or whatever? And it's like, no, it doesn't quite work. So then Toshusai, Iroha turns to Toshusai and says, hey, the example question we were given at the beginning, why were we made to read the ambigram backward? And she says, well, it's because we were changing question to answer. The question of where to stop solving a code is a deep one, which is such a great line. It's also, the question of where to stop solving a code is a deep one. So she says, so what, can you see the goal? And Iroha says, actually, the goal's further away, because totasu, read backward, is sutato, start. This puzzle is still elementary for the selection of class leading private. And at that moment, the teacher puts down on the board, start, in big letters. And she says, well done, elegant fledglings, as you have deduced. The class leading private will be selected in 3 sessions over the next 3 weeks. For those of you, unfortunately, who did not produce results, wait patiently for the opportunity to redouble your attack. And they're like, shit, this is only the start of a 4-part thing. But now Iroha's abilities have kind of been recognized by other people too. So there's a big thing that happens here. And also there's an additional thing, because Umi Tsubame, because I've got a message for you from Kogoe, which I was not going to give you, but I'm kind of impressed with you now. So here you go.
There you go. This is, again, kind of like an actually solid chapter of Cipher Academy that also just has some legitimately very funny moments of people just having to react to this poor kid. So, a good time.
Quinn, have we accidentally stumbled into a fun series?
I think we might have, Nick. Hey, you know what? It's better than Earthchild, right?
$1,000,000,000. All right. Now Ginka Glüna, chapter 17, the Guildmaster! Guildmaster shows up after they have successfully fended off Scheherazade. The Guildmaster is accompanied by a dude with a sword, who gets upset at anyone who doesn't properly respect the Guildmaster. The Guildmaster has some history with Ginka, who starts, calling her a hag and stuff, and she gets upset with him. And so she dumps out his backpack and pulls out all of his booze, which I guess he can enjoy as a snowman who has no taste buds, or as far as we can tell, a mouth that can open. They kind of introduce themselves to Ginka and Luna's group. They were like, oh yeah, thanks to you helping us, we were able to actually apprehend Hera. And they kind of bring up the point of like, wait, so Hera's part of this academy, this guild, like, why are you like fighting each other? And that gets explained in this chapter. There's a lot of uncomfortable closeness that happens with the Guildmaster keeps on like cupping Luna's face and stuff. There is kind of, although there is a kind of a cute moment later on where she just runs away from her and hides behind a tree in order to continue the conversation. We're basically given like the next leg of this big quest, which is, so there's like people who are associated with the guild that we've lost control of and need to be subdued, and the nation's fallen into ruin. And here's a helpful guide thing that will show you how much of Ginka's body is being restored. Here's a leg that's in the book. When all the body parts are depicted, your body should be able to be restored. But the fragments you require are all held by elite magicians. Dodon! And the Guildmaster says, hey, could you, help me out and take all this? And Ginka's like, I'm not going to clean up your mess. I just want to get my body back. But yeah, it'll be a problem if I, let an endless zombie attack happen, then that'd be bad. So I'm going to, yeah, sure.
I guess
I'll help you if it's in the line of my quest and stuff. And the Guildmaster also says to Luna, like, hey, you don't need to help him. I could teach you and stuff. You could stay here, giving her like an unwelcome hug. So Luna is like, look, whether the path is dangerous or safe, death always catches up in the end. So I'll take the path that seems more fun, even if it's more dangerous. She's cool. So they're off to their next generation, to the next basically challenge. We're told about a couple of different locations they're on the way. Her swordsman guard is going to come with them, but he's only respectful towards Ginka because he hates magicians. The end.
And that's fair. Nick, 17 chapters in, we decided to get started. Hell yeah.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
It's like, hey, here's a goal, here's a process, here's a side character who has presumably some kind of personality to them. No offense to Beretta and Anemone, but they also don't show up in this chapter, so that kind of goes.
They don't.
I mean, I guess Beretta is there in the background of a shot or two, so there's that. It feels like we are introduced to like a cool tertiary character with a different sort of personality and like a cool quest. And like, I'm excited. Like, all right, let's go to this farmland with like a hidden underside. Like I am intrigued now.
Yeah. Quinn, I've got a puzzle for you.
Oh, for me. Okay. Is
Is
it Saudi Arabia?
I almost didn't come up with one because I was too busy coming up with the lyrics to Earthchild is Grime.
I was gonna wonder how long you spent coming up with the lyrics.
Not long,
okay.
Just a few minutes, honestly.
Oh, I'm impressed.
It was only one verse. So, all right, here's the puzzle. None can persist through the partially plumed patron. Once performed, the match reaches its peroration.
Give that to me one more time.
None can persist through the partially plumed patron. Once performed, the match reaches its peroration.
I've never heard the word peroration before.
It was a new one for me too. I will admit. It means the end. It means conclusion.
Okay. Partially. Is it Baron Corbin?
You're on the right track in terms of what I'm going for, but it is not Baron Corbin.
Okay.
It's
who else is significantly balding?
No.
Oh.
Not that. This is the clue is a finishing move that finishes a match reliably.
Okay. Is it Kenny Omega?
It is Kenny Omega.
Okay.
The partially plumed patron is a one-winged angel.
Ah, I like that. That's a good one. Nick, I have a wrestler for you, and if you can guess them in a minute. Right now, it's just for funsies. We're gonna find like another stake to put on this. But
possibly a steak.
Yeah, maybe a steak bet. I don't know. So Nick, you got 1 minute on the clock. Are you ready?
Yes.
Go.
All right. Are they an active wrestler?
Yes.
Are they in AEW?
Yes.
All right. Have they held championship in AEW?
Yes.
Is that an ROH championship?
No.
No, it is not. Okay. Is it a singles championship?
Yes.
Okay. Is it a man?
Yes.
Okay. Is it the TNT championship?
No.
Ooh. World championship?
No.
All Atlantic championship?
No.
What's the last one? Fuck. I've forgotten. Oh no. I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. I have no idea where to go. Is this a member of the Elite?
No.
Is it a member of one of Chris Jericho's goon gangs? One of the 5 he's had?
No, they have not been affiliated with Chris Jericho.
Okay. Singles championship is not an ROH. Okay.
All right.
Wow.
We're gonna need a guess.
I feel like I have just hit a brick wall on this one. Okay. I don't know. Is it fucking Wheeler Yuta? I don't know.
It is not Wheeler Yuta. There was one championship you forgot.
It is. I couldn't remember
the
it.
ever infamous FTW championship.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess is considered a canon championship. It's almost never
around.
I was gonna say it's almost never defended. I think Hook has it now, or did someone else take it?
He does.
Okay.
He does.
But it was not Hook. I was talking about the effervescent Ricky Starks.
I love Ricky Starks.
Ricky Starks
so
fucking rules.
He's great. Yeah. Okay. I'll take that.
So that counts. The audience says you had to read Earthchild again.
Nope.
That
Not
was.
happening.
I didn't tell you. The secret bet was already
Not
made.
even if I go 0-52 this year will that happen.
Oh man, can you imagine a year-long version of it? The suspense would be so frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you're just wildly ahead or behind in like fucking June.
All right. PPPPP. Chapter 64. I don't know why, but I remember a little bit. Okay. Look, I have read this chapter. I cannot tell you what happens. It's trippy. I mean, it's a PPPPP
that Apollo
chapter.
3 really went cracked on this one. From what I understand, it is essentially a chapter told through the vantage points, partially of Gakuan, and then partially through the mom.
Yes. And it's about their relationship, kind of. And there's like this pendant that's in focus. And Sorachika asks about like a fantasy that his mother had. And he doesn't really understand the stuff that she was saying to him. And also there's like the inner lucky that happens. And Gakuan just like points at him and points at the pendant. Sorachika's guy is like, hey, that's yours now. And then the pendant gets taken to his dead wife's grave, and all the fantasies are following him around. And then he's just at her grave, and also someone else is there. Is that Lucky?
Looks like Lucky. This is a weird one. I don't know how to process it. It's artistic, but also kind of silly. But it seems like it's still kind of good. I'm sure I'll think about it again. At some point when I reread the series, I'll probably be like, oh, what a cool chapter that is. But as far as recapping it goes, I'm just like, I don't know. He walks around and like, it's introspective.
You remember some stuff.
It's introspective. You see a little glimpse of the relationship. There's no dialogue for us to really comment on or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. It's a good chapter to enjoy by yourself, I feel like,
Yeah.
Nick, let's talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 139. Holy shit, it's already 10 o'clock, so we have to go. Hey, Doom is now fucking buff Sephiroth, and he's super strong. He's like, we've become super powerful, Mash. You must feel it, the desire to fight even stronger opponents. Mash's like, no, not really. I'm going to keep fighting stronger people. I don't find it exciting at all.
I just want to go home.
Yeah. Doom reveals that he has mirror magic, illusion magic, basically, and that's what he starts using now at perfect percent. A whole bunch of himself kind of like copies come out. Mash has a great line. He's like, some people can't help but double down when they're wrong. All these people, all these people are coming at Mash. It's difficult. Like, how is he going to dodge all of these? A whole bunch start coming at him. So he slams like his hands into the ground and he lifts it like a giant pile of the earth up. And he literally weighs all of them with his arms. And he's like, this one's the heaviest. It's the real one. And punches him. And then Doom's like, all right, fine. Here's my second. It's a kaleidoscope of essentially like a whole shit ton of us. And Mash is like, all right, I'm just going to punch a whole bunch of them. But he finishes. And Doom is behind him, and he's like, taking a break. I warned you. You're lacking in every way. And he finishes the chapter by slashing.
Yep. So Doom's getting a little moment to look super strong. I'm pretty sure the other shoe's going to drop fairly soon.
Yep.
You would guess. Also, there is a moment where Mash says, my muscles don't know the meaning of impossible, which is very silly.
Yes.
Elusive Samurai. It's chapter 93, debate 1335. The good guy and bad guy exchange barbed words at each other. And Tadayoshi has, taken the advantage over Tokiyuki. Tokiyuki's fighting back by bringing up how, hey, you freaking killed my brother. You've done a lot of unjust murder in your attempts to take over the government and stuff. Tadayoshi says, hey, your people ruled improperly. You insisted on fighting back when we tried to change things. It was actually you who killed the people of Kamakura. And it looks like Tadayoshi's really going to take things over because Tokiki's very well prepared and stuff. And he's like, this isn't actually what you talking about, saying all these things. You're speaking unnaturally for someone who's 10 years old. You've just been spoon-fed what to say by Yorishige. You're just a puppet of unscrupulous adults. What's so righteous about that? Pretty killer moment. Mm-hmm. And Tokiyuki starts to like choke basically under the pressure of this. And Tadayoshi has a pretty badass line where he says, "Did I speak too harshly to a child?" So cold.
It's pretty brutal.
And he says, "Look, just surrender. You can go home, say your prayers to your ancestors, and then your struggle will end. I don't wish to see you suffer under this burden any longer." But Tokiyuki regains himself, and he says, "You've settled my spirit. I can't win an argument, but even a child can see your pity is fake." And Yorishige brings up like, hey, the Hojo preserved peace for 150 years, and there was room for improvement. And it's true, I did prepare him for debate, but through that, he's learned what poor government actually is. And Tokiyuki brings up like, look, your corrupt rule is going to be far worse than the Hojo's, because the Ashikaga plan to usurp the Mikado. You've got this heartless sense of justice. That means you're going to keep on trying to usurp power. You're going to go after the Mikado. You're going to keep on attacking people and slaughtering people and killing innocent people for the sake of this vision of justice of yours. And he gets up out of his saddle so he can stand up on his horse and just belt at him. You're fucking disgusting, basically. And he says, like, look, even if you seize power, I would never obey you. Warriors everywhere would resist you and hurry to break away, and then there'd just be more fighting than ever. This isn't just ruling. This is horrible governing. And all of his troops are really ramped up, and they're like, yeah, you're right. Like, it doesn't matter how logical you are, how right you are. Everyone's going to be disgusted by the way that they're behaving in order to achieve this vision, and we're going to fucking fight against them. And Tadayoshi's like, yeah, I can't reason this. Shit. God damn it, this kid's emotions are too strong. And he says, all right, so will you not yield? And Tokiyuki says, I'm through debating. Now we fight. So.
Yep.
Cool chapter.
Yeah, like a little conclusion to the debate. We'll talk about Black Clover here, chapter 347. Sorry, page 347, Truth and the Lie.
Truth and the Lie.
Yeah, so it looks like they're doing pretty well. The Ryuzen 7 have managed to defeat the five-headed dragon thing. But doesn't look like it actually did exactly what they thought, because Sister is not done. The ice guy uses ice magic, shatters it. Basically, like half the group are like kind of impaled. The other half are a little bit rough and tumbling going on there. The one that's still up is sort of like the Blood Knight, and she runs. She's gonna go for the beast magic guy, and then he summons the boogeyman, which is like a cute little frog, but it's actually just whatever it turns into, whatever people's fears are. So for her, it's frogs. She's scared of frogs. But for Chika, it's her dad. And we go into the flashback where she's remembering like her dad being like, hey, I have a drug, use it, and forcing it down her mouth. And then from her vantage point, seeing like all the blood spatter and the carnage of like her clan being slaughtered and everything like that. And then she's like, wait a minute, what was that? What was that memory? Am I the one that killed everybody? That can't be true. Like, if I did that, then all this time I've been spending Heiami, what were they for? The rest of the Ryuzen 7 get up. They're not quite done yet. They're like, don't worry, Master Luscious will give you the true happiness and peace later on. But the five-headed dragon is back. It looks like things are pretty bad. Chika is completely stunned. Her, dad Claude has lifted up its sword to strike down at her. And she's like, no, I've grown stronger. I thought I had at least, but is this what I really am? Am I really this weak? And she thinks back to that time her big brother stepped in to protect her from her dad. And this time, in the same shot, someone else has stepped in to protect her, and it's Asta who says, what do you think you're doing to my benefactor?
Yeah. Some people, I think, pointed out, like, it's kind of frustrating that we're just back to the point of Asta coming in and saving the day. But, I mean, I think that we're at a point now where it's like, look, we've got so many characters involved in this finale. It's kind of to be expected that we do wrap up certain things kind of more quickly than maybe it would be if we were not having the final stretch of this series. Then maybe we would take more time on certain things. Ichika was introduced in chapter 300 plus, so she's not going to get a long time to have her plot line play out. I do really like the shot of her in the flashback where she sees her reflection in her sword. It's a cool thing. And maybe it'll be nice to see Asta, kick butt and show off his new techniques this time. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm fine with the Chica being like, I need help right here, because I do think it's kind of like a identity shattering thing to be like, wait, I was the one who killed everybody. Like, I could see why she's so despaired and hopeless and wants somebody to protect her. And I do love the mirror image of Asta being, on the right it's Yuna or Yami, on the left it's Asta. It's a very nice symmetry that I appreciate.
It also I also do like that, Asta's bringing up like, hey, this person has helped me out, and so I'm going to help them out.
Yeah,
they feel more like equals than they could in this kind of situation.
Yep.
Let's conclude on One Piece, chapter 1071, The Hero Deploys.
Oh, Nick, it's super easy to wrap up One Piece super quickly, right?
So, Kuma is flying through the air. He lands amongst people, and then gets up and starts moving, and people are like, oh, shit! Because he's a big, scary dude.
He's flying straight through the red line, which is wild to think about.
So people are like calling for the Marines and stuff. And they're like, holy shit, this guy's dangerous. He's a slave of the Celestial Dragons, and he doesn't have a human will of his own. And we don't know his current programming directive. So who knows what the hell he's up to. Then we cut to the island Egghead. And so the CP0 are trying to capture literally every point that Vegapunk could use to escape the island. And so they're like, look, let's destroy the ships. Let's take over everything. We've got control of the Seraphim now, so maybe we could just like drag him out of there. But of course, they've got the Frontier Dome that's holding them off, which Kaku has demonstrated is going to be a bit hard to overcome. Then they're like, hey, look, we've been told not to engage with the emperors, so what do we do? And Lucci's like, I don't view Straw Hat as an emperor. And my man, Buggy's an emperor. So.
Yeah, he's like, now Buggy, that's a man I would never mess with.
That's a man I can have a beer with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, when you think about all the emperors you'd like to have a beer. I mean, when you do think about all the emperors, he is probably number one. Like, him and Shanks are maybe the only,
Him and Shanks maybe, and Luffy's like, I don't drink beer.
Yeah, Luffy's just gonna steal your shit. You're like, nah, dog.
So the Vegapunks are gearing up to try and escape / fight their way out. And they're like, well, what do we do? There's a disagreement among them because, of course, they're different personalities embodied in these different forms. They're kind of, just having a little scuffle with each other. Vegapunk Prime is worried about Sentomaru and apologizes to his memory. I don't know. So he's like, okay, well, we gotta help out here. And so he gets on the Dendenmushi and says, you heard it, I Rayquaza help out of this. And there's a response that says, I've been waiting for your order. Ooh.
Who is that? I bet it's Jin. He's got to be somewhere.
It's got to be somewhere. He's got his tonfas ready.
Yeah. Oh, ready to so cool. I bet he's swinging them right now.
Yeah. So they're discussing what they're gonna do, and then Vegapunk turns to the Straw Hats and says, "Hey, can I get a spot on your ship? Well, for me and all the other Vegapunks too." And Usopp's like, and Nami's like, ew, no. And Sanji's like, is Lilith included? Oh, it's like, calm down.
I don't think he's seen York. He's gonna lose his mind.
A giant woman.
She's like, all I do is poop. He's like, perfect.
I think he's seen her because, well, I don't know. Maybe Vegapunk walks off somewhere before meeting with them. I don't know. Meanwhile, Bonnie is with Chopper and Luffy. She's running around. She still wants to get Vegapunk, no longer in revenge for her father, but because he quote unquote sicked bugs on her. No, he didn't. You just held the lightsaber they were trying to. And Luffy's like, hey, I promised the old man I'd help him escape, so don't beat him up. That's the only problem with this. the Frontier Dome gets deactivated at that point. And so everyone's like, whoa, what's happening? Is someone in the control room? But, they don't see anyone on the monitor. However, Lucci's group doesn't seem to know what's going on either. So they're suspicious that maybe this is a trap because it seems quite convenient if they're having technical issues at this moment in a way that would be beneficial towards them. But they're like, oh, but is that it? I mean, like, is this really like, are we going to be able to get after Vegapunk? Maybe it's the Straw Hat Pirate's ship. But they don't see the ship, so they're like, okay, let's destroy that thing. They attack the Thousand Sunny, and Zoro wakes up from his nap.
I wish this moment got a little more space, because this is legitimately an awesome moment of like Zoro blocking. He's like, who dares disturb my nap? And just fucking Kaku being like, oh no, no.
It's the guy who kicked my ass.
Oh, he kicked my ass and then fired me. Oh
no. But immediately after that, the Frontier Dome's been restored, although the CP0 is inside. So like, all right, well, they're going after the Straw Hat's ship. So now the ship guards are in combat at the moment, and yeah, Kaku is engaged with Zoro. So they're gearing up to do something. But then Luffy meets up with the other Straw Hats. They're like, okay, so we got to go, right? Luffy says, I want to relax, though. It's like, well, no, it's a dangerous place. So you probably need to leave. Also, they've lost sight of Bonnie because she is chasing after Vegapunk. And she's seemed at least remembered what she was, after, which is, hey, can you turn my father back or not? Those are your only two options. And Vegapunk's like, well, I mean, no, but look, you gotta listen to me. So that's not working out for him. And then we cut away to a stretch of sea in the New World where we're joining Captain Kidd and Killer and crew. They've arrived at the island of the home of the giants, Elbaf. The gasp.
Fucking finally, Nick.
It's happening somewhere else. And then, lastly, we cut to Navy Headquarters Base G14, where people are arguing with Vice Admiral Garp, including someone I don't recognize.
Doll. She's not super important, so you're okay.
Cool. Doll is upset with Garp.
I think Austin might have been on the episode because he kept talking about how hot she was. He got real horny for Doll.
I could see why. Wait, what? Yeah. So, she's like, hey, come on, Garp. You can't just go and pick a fight with an Emperor's Island unless you've got, like, permission from a higher up. And Garp's like, huh? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, it's fine. I'm already here.
It's like, bada boom, baby.
I'm here. And also, he calls out Helmeppo because he's going to go and fucking rescue Kobe from Blackbeard. He's like, yeah, we're going to go and sail for Full of Lead, which is a great name for an island.
It gets better every time I hear it.
I mean, it's like, we're going to go and beat up those pirates and we're going to rescue Captain Kobe. And Helmeppo gets really emotional, as does... So that's the end of the chapter.
Yeah, I wish I could correct you on that one. I do not know who she is. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff. R.I.P. Garp. It's gonna be sad, but we need a reason for Luffy to go after Blackbeard, and him killing Garp is probably gonna do it. So good for him.
That seems like it's probably gonna be what happens.
It has to. It's just like he's shit stomped everyone else who's kind of gone after him. Like, I'm sure we're gonna cut back and he's beaten up Law. And it's just like, yeah, this guy's going to be next. Or maybe he'll interfere in that fight. I don't know. Maybe something happened, but I don't think it's going to work out well for Garp.
Well, that's One Piece for this week. Stuff is happening. Parts are moving. It's a One Piece chapter. What was your favorite chapter this week, Quinn? Tell me.
It's kind of cheating, I guess. But I'm going to give it to... I'm going to give it to Chainsaw Man. I'm mostly giving it for last week's chapter. This week's chapter was great too. It did legitimately have me just be like, no. But like last week's chapter and this one are like so fucking good together.
Yeah, I feel like there were several good chapters this week. I did quite like the way that Hell, even World Trigger played out. I liked the way that Akane-banashi's training progressed. I feel like even with the single chapter, Chainsaw Man probably stands out the most in terms of there was a great, cool conclusion to this aquarium arc, and then you get hit with the gut punch of like, oh shit, is this all going to fall apart now? Because Yoru's trying to turn Denji into a weapon.
Yeah.
How is that going to turn out? It's just been a very gripping 2 weeks in a row. I would almost give it to My Hero Academia just because LeBrava's back, but I feel like that's not fair because there's an entire chapter that precedes the reveal. And also I can't give LeBrava my character of the week because just because she's back, even though like I'm very excited that LeBrava and potentially Gentle are back. Instead, I am going to make my character of the week. Oh God, this is actually kind of hard. I'm gonna have it be Ichika because fuck it. That flashback's like seeing her go from being the narrow-eyed determined girl to being like, oh shit, has everything that I've been working for all been for nothing. It's quite trying. So
yeah, I absolutely agree. She was definitely a good candidate. I think I'm gonna go with Void, just because I really do like Void having like this new like very intense personality. Him signing a coat is such a fucking baller move.
It's so good.
It's great. So I'm super looking forward to that. The audience, by the way, picked Chainsaw Man as their chapter of the week and agreed with Void for their character of the week. But make sure you go out there and vote, people. I definitely saw some votes for like LaBrava, Asa, Gina, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. If it were last week, I would have gone for Asa, I think, as character of the week, because that was a very good chapter for her. All right. Guys, that is it for a weekly manga recap. Thanks for joining us for this long, intense discussion that we have had. I had a lot of emotions that I had to get out of my system at the beginning, so thank you for that. And thank you for tuning in. We do the show here on Weekly Manga Recap on twitch.tv/RillaT. Weekly Manga Recap records live 7:30 Eastern-ish standard Eastern time.
Standing time. You have to stand while you do it.
Can't talk anymore. I've been doing it for almost 3 hours. Can't talk anymore. And our old episodes can be found on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com, as well as podcast posty kind of places like Spotify and iTunes. And the video version is on youtube.com/weeklymangarecap. If you watch the video version, you can see the opening sequence that's been done for us by Malajack Stillitz and Winsleydale Cheddar, as well as some occasional title card art by the amazing Steve Man, who draws boobs, and you can see those boobs wherever boobs are allowed to be drawn on the internet because he has lots of different art profiles everywhere. You can find them under Steve Man Art and under a lot of different places. We want to thank Ninja X3i for maintaining the Google Doc that keeps track of the MVP and favorite series voting and all sorts of different statistics associated with the show, including recommendations. You can go and leave your own recommendation or add your voice to a previous recommendation that has been made to let us know, hey, you want us to cover a certain series, like Earthchild. And you can find that via the Discord. Use the link to access that. Join our community for bi-weekly game nights, discussions on the chapters before they come out, discussions on the series that we will be doing as a recommendation before we get to it next week. All sorts of great stuff with our wonderful community.
Nick, would you like to know what our next recommendation is?
Yes.
Well, we did that whole thing with like the poll and stuff like that. And we picked such an excellent series like Earthchild. I was like, maybe we should slum it a little bit. Maybe their next pick is a really bad one. So I thought I'd go with a little known series. Luke House let us know about this one. It's called Full Metal Alchemist. I think it's a French series.
Never heard it.
Its description says a good dog and a good girl get very close, and then other things happen.
Damn it.
So thought I'd be like, hey, why don't we go check that one out? Try to get some exposure in a little known series.
Yeah, I certainly haven't heard anyone talk about it like it's the best thing ever.
Let's check it out then.
Okay, I guess that's what we'll cover in a month or something like that.
It's gonna take a little bit.
Good. Look forward to that, everyone. And thank you for joining us here for the show. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.